the Sorcerer of the Celestial Dragon line. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Flame Ring, 2nd. In the closed alchemy laboratory, Allen was concentrating on using the carving tools to carve on a red ring. The blue light in his eyes was looming, and he carefully controlled the carving knife. After a long time, Allen finally breathed a sigh of relief. The spell model on the ring was completely engraved. This was the foundation of this magic item. If there was a mistake, all the previous work would be wasted, and he would have to start over. This was the 4th time Allen had finished carving. The previous times, there was either an extra line here, or a little deeper there. He could only start over by remelting. Putting down the carving knife, and rubbing his shoulders, Allen took out the processed magic thorium, which was a man-made synthetic material used to replace mithril. Mithril is an excellent energy-conducting metal, but it has become increasingly scarce since thousands of years ago, so wizards have found a substitute after hundreds of years of research. This metal is only 60% of the effect of mithril, but it is enough for use. Magic thorium is heated and melted with several materials to obtain a silver metal liquid. Use the wizard's hand to carefully manipulate these liquids to inject into the notes that have been carved in advance on the ring, and inject mana at the same time. This step is considered completed, but if you are not careful in this step, the material will be damaged, so you need to concentrate. With the help of the chip, Allen carefully completed this step. At this time, the flame ring has taken shape. The whole body is red. Under the light, there is a kind of fluid flowing in it. The silver-white pattern looks elegant. Take out a ruby and engrave runes on the surface of the gem. This is where the spell is stored. The chip has designed the rune distribution in advance. According to the designed rune comparison, it is engraved. A ruby with a diameter of about 0.7 centimeters has been made. Finally, connect the gem and the main body of the ring according to the reserved channel, and then connect them with the remaining magic silver. This magic item is considered to be completed. After cleaning up the experimental table and throwing various waste materials into the garbage disposal pool, Allen picked up the flame ring. The main body of the ring is red crystal, with silver white lines in it, and inlaid with a ruby shining red, which looks very gorgeous. Allen put it on his hand and injected mana into it. He kept injecting half of his own mana into it, and then this magic item stopped absorbing mana. At the same time, the ring's light dimmed and was no longer conspicuous. With a thought in his mind, a 10 centimeter sized fireball appeared in the laboratory without any sign. Allen controlled the fireball to move in a small space. After experimenting for a while, he cut off the mana. When his mental strength could no longer be maintained, the fireball slowly dissipated. He nodded with satisfaction, refilled the ring with mana, manipulated the crystal ball to open the door of the laboratory, and slowly walked out. After arriving at the front desk to settle the magic stone, Allen left the trading area directly. After having a rich dinner in the restaurant, Allen returned to the dormitory. 3 days later, Allen came to the blacksmith shop. Today, the blacksmith shop was still in full swing. The dwarf Grow was not forging iron, but was directing several knight apprentices to forge iron. I'm talking about you. Haven't you eaten? You are as soft as a woman. No, you are not even as good as a woman. And you, where are you going to hit it? You are a blockhead. If the forging is uneven and the steel is scrapped, you will never get a copper coin. He drank a sip of rum while speaking venomously. When he saw Allen coming in, he said, "Allen, you are here to get your weapons, right? They are in the next room. Follow me." As he said that, he moved on the stool twice, and his short legs barely touched the support frame of the high stool, and jumped down. He waved his hand to signal Allen to follow. Then he came to this small room, which was filled with various weapons. Even according to Allen's modern vision, these weapons were very sophisticated. Various two-handed swords and two-handed axes were cold and awe-inspiring, and the knight's armor was solid and heavy. It seemed that this dwarf was not bragging, and his level was master level. At this time, Grow came out from the inner room with a box in his hand, and handed it to Allen. "This is the weapon you want. See if it fits." Allen reached out to take it, opened the box, and inside was a cross sword, which was slightly longer than the average cross sword. The sharp blade reflected the faint light, and the sword body was a dark red, looking like it was stained with too much blood. The hilt was slightly longer than the average one-handed sword, and the finely carved wolf head could not only ensure the center of gravity when using the one-handed sword, but also take into account the feel of holding it with both hands. The sword was more than 3 feet long, and the blade was wider and thicker than the traditional long sword, with a deeper blade. The overall weight was heavier, making it more conducive to chopping rather than piercing. This sword was made using my latest forging technology. It's my best work this year. Are you satisfied? Allen weighed the long sword and gestured back and forth for a few times, nodding with satisfaction. The dwarf master's craftsmanship is indeed extraordinary. I'm very satisfied with the weapon. Of course, I'm the famous lava hammer, Master Grow. The dwarf was very satisfied to hear Allen's praise. He took out the fine linen and wrapped the hilt of the sword so that it would not slip out of his hand. He inserted the long sword into the scabbard and buckled it directly at his waist. He walked back and forth without hindering his movements, and it was also very easy to draw the sword with his right hand. After greeting Grow, Allen walked out of the blacksmith shop. With his equipment ready, Allen was ready to go into actual combat. He took out the secret seal given by his mentor Connor and prepared to join the patrol team of the academy. The patrol team's base was on the left side of the academy gate. There was a 3-story building made of huge stones. On the first floor of the small building, 2 patrol members with a guard medal were standing guard. Hello, is Senior Clyde here? Mentor Connor introduced me here. This is a token. Allen stood at the door and took out a badge with a secret seal and said to one of the apprentices, Captain Clyde is upstairs. Wait a minute, I'll go back and inform him. The apprentice took a look at the badge. Although he didn't recognize it, the strong magic aura on it made his heart tighten. My name is Allen. Allen nodded and said, wait a minute, I'll be there soon. After saying that, he took the badge and walked quickly towards the small building. After about 5 minutes, 2 figures walked out one after the other. Are you the apprentice with great fighting talent that the mentor said? A tall man with a resolute face walked up to Allen. I'm Allen. As for fighting talent, it's okay. Are you Senior Clyde? Allen smiled slightly. I'm Clyde, the captain of the patrol team. There's no need to be modest. The mentor never exaggerates. Since you can pass the mentor's assessment, it proves that you are good enough. Clyde said with a smile. Come in first. My mentor has already told me about your situation. I thought you wouldn't be back for a few days, but it's just right for you to come now. Clyde pulled Allen and walked directly into the hall. Chapter 27 Patrol. The hall was very spacious, with only a few people sitting in the corner. Clyde took Allen to the 3rd floor. This is my office. If you want to join the patrol team, you need to fill out a form. Then I will assign you a team. You can just follow them. Don't worry. The patrol is not difficult. It will be once every 2 weeks. Clyde took out a form and handed it to Allen. Allen took it and looked down. Knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Clyde opened the door with a blank expression on his face. Mockler, what are you doing here? This is my office. You are in the wrong place. Clyde said stiffly. Dear Captain, I heard that there are new people joining the patrol team, so I came to see. After all, I'm the deputy captain. Is it not okay for me to come and see the new people joining the patrol team? The man smiled and spoke slowly, but anyone could hear the meaning of finding fault. Okay, Allen is here. After speaking, he opened the door. A handsome man with blonde hair and a gentle smile on his lips, full of aristocratic etiquette, made people know at a glance that he was an aristocrat. Hello, I'm Allen. Allen stood up and greeted. Hello, I'm Mockler, the deputy captain of the patrol team. Are you going to join the patrol team? Captain Clyde has never given anyone an example of using connections, but you've started it. The deputy captain was polite, but he was setting traps in his words. He looked fearless and confident. Allen was introduced by my mentor, Wizard Connor. Do you have any objection? Clyde said expressionlessly. I respect Wizard Connor very much, but the patrol team is very important. If you are not strong enough, it will be very dangerous. I'm thinking about my junior Allen. Mockler did not accept the challenge and looked hypocritical. Are you saying that my vision is not good? Clyde didn't want to give in and stared at Mockler. Captain Clyde, I think you misunderstood what I meant. Allen can join the patrol team, but he must be tested so that we can understand his strength and better assign tasks. Mockler put away his smile and said righteously, this is okay, I'll go test it. Allen interrupted Clyde and said directly, then turned around and smiled at Clyde and said, Senior Clyde, please rest assured. Even if you don't believe me, you should believe your mentor. Deputy Captain Mockler, how do you want to test it? Allen said expressionlessly. Clyde saw Allen take the test, opened his mouth, seemed to think of something, looked at Mockler with a hint of teasing, and then said no more. It's very simple. You need to spar with a team member. Don't worry, I will tell him to be gentle. You won't be in danger of your life. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Mockler smiled like his signature. The captains of the patrol teams cannot take action. They are all 3rd level wizard apprentices. It's not fair to deal with a 2nd level wizard apprentice. Clyde said stiffly. Don't worry, it won't exceed the strength of a 2nd level apprentice. Mockler didn't care about these restrictions. Then let's go. There is a small training ground behind here. It's still okay to test your strength. Mockler urged directly. Allen and Clyde looked at each other, nodded, and said to Mockler, you go and select the people first. I'll let Allen fill out the forms and handle the affairs first, and then I'll go over. After that, he ignored this person and began to take out the forms and pens for Allen to fill out. Mockler's face turned livid, and he looked at Clyde deeply and turned away. Allen, I'm sorry to have you implicated. This Mockler wants to make trouble for me and has always wanted to take my position, but he is too young. If you don't want to go, I will solve the problem. Clyde closed the door and was not worried about the next test. Senior, I'll go take the test. Since I came here, I haven't really competed with wizards. This is a rare opportunity. Allen's eyes flashed, and he smiled slightly. Seeing that Allen's expression did not seem to be fake, Clyde nodded. Okay then. Allen quickly filled out the form and handed it to Clyde. Clyde signed his name after reading it, then put it away, took out a medal, and handed it to Allen. Here is your medal. You can come over this afternoon. Thank you, Captain. Allen took it. This medal was a shield with a staff next to it. The edge of the shield was a circle of thorns. This was the patrol's guard medal, used to prove one's identity. Then the two of them walked out the door together and headed for the training ground at the back. The training ground was very close, and they arrived at the ground in a few minutes. At this time, there were more than 20 people fighting around the training ground. It seemed that Mockler had brought all the patrol members here. It seemed that this man was sure that Allen would lose, and he called so many people here just to give Clyde a hard blow and hit his reputation. Have you heard? A non-combat wizard is going to join the patrol team. Of course I heard. Deputy Captain Mockler has been promoting it for a while. The two are still fighting, but the newcomer should have the confidence to join the patrol team. Come on, come on. The market is open. This time a non-combat wizard is joining our patrol team. The deputy captain proposes to choose one person from the team to test his strength. Betting on the newcomer will win at 1 to 3, and betting on the team members will win at 1 to 1.2. The maximum bet per person is 10 magic stones. There are also other new ways to play. A fat man with a somewhat fat body and a kind face greeted him. Sherlock, 2 magic stones. Bet he can't withstand 5 moves. I bet the newcomer can withstand 10 moves. More than a dozen people quickly bet a few magic stones. Allen and Clyde came to the training ground. From a distance, he saw Mockler standing in the field, and there were several other apprentices standing next to him. He took a look and saw that they were all 3rd level wizard apprentices. Seeing Clyde coming in, they all greeted him. Clyde smiled and said hello to Allen. These are the captains of each team. They are all capable of being level 3 wizard apprentices. Don't worry, they won't make things difficult for you. Mockler, who are you going to let do the test? Clyde said in a hard tone, completely losing his good expression. Isn't he behind? Mockler pointed behind everyone. Everyone looked over and saw a wizard with a thin figure. Cruel, isn't he going to break through to level 3 wizard apprentice? Why is he here? One of the apprentices with grey brown hair and holding a blood red staff was surprised. I invited Kirul here. He hasn't broken through to level 3 wizard apprentice yet. He is experienced. It's safe for him to come for the test, Mokla said calmly, but everyone around could hear the pride in his tone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Mokla's Little Trick. Oh, damn, I'm going to lose again. It's Callowell. This time, the newcomer can't even last 3 rounds. Damn Sherlock, did you know that your opponent was going to be him? I've been tricked by you, a profiteer again. I'll remember you, fat guy. Allen glanced at the opponent. The chip had already projected his information. Name, Callowell, strength 3.6, agility 2.8, constitution 3.5, spirit 9.1, skills, unknown. Seeing its attributes, Allen's pupils flashed blue. This person's physical fitness is only that of a high-level knight apprentice, but his mental strength has reached the peak of a second-level wizard apprentice, which is more than 2 points higher than Allen, but his physical fitness is far inferior. Callowell, you're here. Do you need to prepare? Mokla walked forward enthusiastically. No, after the test, I have to go back to continue meditating and prepare for a breakthrough. Let's get started quickly, Callowell said expressionlessly. Okay. Mokla shrugged his shoulders. What about you? Do you need time to prepare? Mokla turned around and said to Allen, wait a minute, I need to do something first. Allen said casually, how long will it take? Our time is precious. Please hurry up. Mokla nodded. Excuse me, can I place a bet? Allen came to the fat man and asked. Of course, the maximum limit is 10 magic stones. Sherlock said with a smile. Okay, I bet on myself to win. 10 magic stones. Allen took out the magic stone and handed it to the fat man. You seem very confident. You are taking care of my business so much. I hope we can cooperate more in the future. The fat man narrowed his eyes and patted Allen on the shoulder. Okay, I'm done with my work. We can start. Allen said to Mokla with a slight smile. The two stood in the training ground, 30 meters apart. With the temporary referee's start, the two moved instantly. Callowell cast spells while moving. After training, all combat wizards can cast spells while moving. Allen cast a spell as light as a swallow and as fast as an arrow from a bow, rushing towards Callowell. Callowell pointed his magic wand, and a light green translucent light shield appeared on his body. Then, another spiritual light appeared, and 3 wind element arrows instantly flew towards Allen. Callowell had at least 2 magic items on him. One was the magic wand, and the other could release arrow magic. This move easily gave him the upper hand from the beginning. Allen was moving very fast, and he ran into the arrow magic just as he approached, but the chip had already calculated the trajectory of the arrow. With a light tap of the long sword in his hand, Allen easily changed the direction of the arrow magic without slowing down. After releasing the arrow magic, he prepared for the next spell. Allen did not slow down, and he had crossed nearly half the distance in a breath. He lightly tapped a piece of white grease in his hand, and a spiritual light flashed. In an instant, a greasy ground appeared in front of Callowell. Callowell, who was moving to cast a spell, did not react in time, stepped on it, slipped, and stumbled to the ground. However, the injured spell was not messed up at all, and a small tornado appeared around Allen the moment he fell. As soon as they appeared, they surrounded Allen. The flame ring in Allen's hand glowed red, and 3 fireballs appeared around his body, and then exploded outward in an instant. The shockwave directly dispersed the tornado that had formed. He did not stop his steps at all, and after a few jumps, he was still standing beside Callowell. The long sword in his hand, that had not been used, was raised high, and with a bright sword light, it chopped down fiercely. Stop. Show mercy. Mokla and Clyde, who were standing by and watching the battle, shouted. Hearing Mokla's fierce shout, Allen did not react. The sharp sword in his hand chopped down directly, but when it pierced the wind element barrier, the sword body was horizontal, and the sword spine slapped fiercely on his chest. When the wind element barrier was shattered, Callie was too slow to get up. In his desperate eyes, Allen had already slapped him fiercely on the chest with a sword. As if playing golf, Allen hit Callie far away with a sword. Then he danced a sword flower with his right hand and waved his hand to put the long sword back to his waist. Mokla had already rushed to Allen and grabbed Allen's collar. "Didn't you hear me tell you to stop?" His eyes widened and he stared at Allen fiercely. Allen moved his fingers slightly, pinched the joints of his hand, and threw him away. "You can stop if you say so. Fighting is ever changing. It's normal that you can't stop." "What? You don't want to admit your defeat and want to fight?" Allen stroked his collar and glanced at Mokla. "You? What do you mean by you? Losing is losing. Callie is fine. He just got a little injured. He will be fine in a few days. Stay away. I have the final say here." Mokla wanted to continue, but Clyde interrupted him and said directly, "Elu did a good job. Your strength is beyond my expectation." "Haha, you should have confidence in your mentor," Allen said with a smile. "Of course I have confidence in my mentor, but your performance really surprised me." "Okay, let's talk about this first. I have to go and collect my prize first." "Haha, this is not a small amount. I made a fortune today," Allen said with a smile. There was a wailing not far away, and Sherlock looked constipated. If Allen won, he could have earned more than 20 magic stones, but Allen bet 10 in the end, so he didn't make any money, and lost 2. "Dear Mr. Sherlock, I'm here to collect my bonus." Allen stood in front of the fat man with a smile on his face. "You are much smarter than me, Allen. Really, you should go into business. I think it won't be long before you become a wealthy wizard. Are you interested in cooperating with me?" Sherlock calmed down and talked non-stop. "Okay, let's talk about this later. Now I want to see my lovely magic stones. I think I don't need to say it again, right, Mr. Sherlock?" Allen interrupted Sherlock's chattering with a smile. "Okay, sir, this is your bonus in principle, but I really want to cooperate with you. Let's." The fat man took out 40 magic stones with some embarrassment, wanting to continue to fight for it. "Okay, I understand, Mr. Sherlock. If you need me, I will cooperate with you." "Okay, that's it for today. I have something else to do. Sorry for bothering you." Allen took the 40 magic stones and said perfunctorily, then turned and left. After the competition ended, everyone left the training ground in 2s and 3s. Allen came back to Clyde and left the training ground together. Chapter 29 Patrol Team. Back to the office on the 3rd floor, Allen took the patrol team's uniform equipment and left. He would officially start work in 2 days. Allen had 2 days to deal with personal matters and familiarize himself with the procedures. The next morning, Allen came to the patrol team's station. Clyde was already waiting for him on the 3rd floor. "I'll take you to meet your companions. From now on, you will be a team." "Thank you, Senior." The two came to the hall one after another. "Arthur, Gray, come here." Clyde shouted to the few people not far away. "Captain, we'll be there soon. Let me introduce you." Clyde smiled when he saw the few people coming. "This handsome man is Arthur, the one next to him is Gray, the red-haired girl is Lilith, and the one next to him is Ruth. Arthur is the captain, a 3rd level wizard apprentice, and the others are 2nd level wizard apprentices. These people are all combat wizards who have passed the combat spellcasting course. This is Allen, who will officially join your team today. His reputation should have spread yesterday, so I won't introduce him in detail. You all should get to know each other. Hello, my name is Ruth." Ruth is a tall and beautiful girl. She took the initiative to walk up to Allen and greeted him. "Hello, I'm Allen. It's an honor to be in the same team with you." Allen gave a wizard salute and said gracefully, "I heard that you defeated Callie yesterday. He is so strong. You should know that Callie is in the top 3 of the 2nd level wizard apprentices in the patrol team. You actually defeated him." Ruth's face was full of stars, looking like a star-chasing girl. Lilith beside her also nodded. "It's just good luck. He didn't take the battle seriously, and I seized the opportunity to win," Allen said modestly. "Okay, don't save face for that ice face. Winning is winning." Clyde patted Allen on the shoulder and said, "Since you all know each other, I'm going to get busy." Clyde said goodbye to everyone and left. "Goodbye, Captain. After everyone said hello, they came to a table. After the 5 people sat down, Allen took the initiative to ask, "Captain Arthur, do you know what our mission is? We are a patrol team that was established not long ago. Only Lilith and I have patrolled for a while. You all joined in the past month, so we will not patrol too far away during this period. We will patrol near the college, to run in the team." After Arthur finished speaking, he picked up a cup of coffee and took a sip. "This is a little preferential treatment for a newly established team like us. The swamps near the college are mainly scavenger crows, swamp lizards, mud monsters, etc. These things are only at the highest level of knights. We are responsible for monitoring the number of these monsters. When their number exceeds the warning value, we need to take the initiative to clean them up." After understanding the precautions, everyone began to patrol near the college in the afternoon. The sun in the sky emits infinite light and heat. The swamp seems a bit stuffy. The soul gathering tree in the swamp is baring its fangs and claws. Allen and his group of 5 people are walking in a row on the path. The soul gathering tree is planted here by the 5 Rings Tower. It is a high energy creature with a long life and a strong hypnotic and hallucinogenic effect. However, as long as you don't get close, there is no problem. After all, as apprentices of the academy, these domesticated monsters can be distinguished. Several people walked to an open space. There was a small wooden house here, which was a resting point established by the patrol team. The place we are patrolling is the southern part of the academy. There are a lot of carrion crows there recently. We need to clean them up. There are also some other creatures. Of course, the materials obtained belong to us all. These demonized creatures need to be strictly controlled. Don't let them break the balance. At the same time, we need to check if anyone else breaks into the academy. The team leader Arthur took out a sheepskin map and said, "This map is extremely simple and abstract. The range of the 5 Rings Tower is marked in the middle, and the activity areas of various demonized creatures are marked around the academy, and there are also several places that need to be visited for patrol. There are some simple lines on it, and the names are marked with letters. Carrion crows. This thing eats everything, and reproduces very quickly. It has no magic ability, and is easy to kill." Allen thought about the introduction in the monster manual. "Okay, let's get there quickly and start patrolling. This mission is very simple, but don't be careless. If there are casualties in such a simple mission, we will become the laughing stock of the academy. Believe me, you definitely don't want to become that," Arthur said with a serious expression. Seeing everyone nod, he continued, "Now we are a team. Everyone needs to introduce their approximate strength so that we can fight better. Let me talk about it first. I'm a physical fitness trainee knight and have mastered 7 secondary spells. Gray, a senior knight apprentice, has mastered 4 secondary spells. By the way, I'm good at the Eye of Reconnaissance." The brown-haired apprentice with a low sense of presence said, "Eye of Reconnaissance. This spell template is not available in the Tower of Wisdom. Is it your family heirloom?" Lilith asked curiously. "I got it from my mentor." Gray was a little shy and scratched his head when he answered. "Lilith, senior knight apprentice, mastered 5 secondary spells, good at plants. I can heal spells." Lilith said with a smile. "Ruth, senior knight apprentice, mastered 4 secondary spells, good at attack spells. My flame beads are very powerful." Allen, formal knight, mastered 5 secondary spells, good at close combat. Allen hid a lot of strength, but this is normal, no one will reveal all the cards. Everyone was a little surprised to hear Allen say that he was already a formal knight. Although wizards are good at close combat, few wizards will continue to practice night breathing. "Okay, now that we know the general strength, Allen and I will take turns to lead the way. Gray, can your reconnaissance eye be kept open?" Arthur clapped his hands and said, "Yes, this spell lasts for a few hours without much consumption." Gray nodded. "Well, you summon it. I will go in front first. Allen, you will be the last, and we will exchange after a while." "Okay, then let's get started." He took out the staff and walked out first. "Be careful. There are rune arrays near the academy, but not in the forest. Although the official wizards have cleared out the dangerous things, it is inevitable that there will be runes from other places." Arthur led the way and warned. Allen cheered up and turned the chip scan to the maximum. Allen's chip could scan a range of 500 meters at the beginning. Later, when he was promoted to a second level wizard apprentice, the chip also evolved and could now scan a range of 800 meters. However, there is radiation energy in the forest in this area, so it can only scan a range of more than 500 meters. This is the first time he has come out since joining the Five Rings Tower. He has only walked through the swamp once when he entered the academy, so he is still a little curious. Chapter 30 More Coffee and Botanical Garden. Please recommend. Please collect. Warning. Warning. A snake-like creature is approaching. With the sound of the chip, a red snake-like creature appeared on Allen's retina, and it could be seen that it was hiding on a branch. Swoosh. A green branch suddenly turned into a venomous snake, opening its mouth wide to bite Arthur. Arthur's expression remained unchanged, and he raised his staff and sent the venomous snake flying. This was a tree vine snake, which would hide as a vine and hang down, and launch a sudden attack when a person or an animal approached. It was very poisonous, but it was of no value. After the tree vine snake was sent flying, it was stabbed by the spikes of the staff. As soon as it fell to the ground, it twitched and stopped moving. He raised his staff and threw it into the swamp not far away. A black shadow caught it in an instant. Then it disappeared silently. It was a mud monster that specialized in eating dead bodies. This thing had no active attack ability, but it could digest all kinds of things. It was a professional cleaner and would decompose most things. A few hours passed in the blink of an eye, and the sky gradually darkened. The swamp was more dangerous at night than during the day. A group of people came to a small house, which was a safe stronghold marked on the map. The wizards of the academy carved runes here to provide a shelter. At night, bursts of low roars sounded in the swamp, and insects chirped in the grass. Although this is a demonized area, there are still many wild beasts living here, but neither wild beasts nor demonized beasts can cause any impact on this small house. Runestones were placed on the foundation under the wooden house. The wizards formed a rune array and then transmitted energy through the ground veins to connect with the academy as a whole. These rune arrays are always running, which has the effect of protection, deterrence, and expulsion. Ordinary wild beasts will not approach, and demonized beasts have a more acute perception and will not come here. So it is a good place to rest. In front of the fire, several people sat around, and the kettle placed on it was boiling hot water. I brought the unique Moorish coffee of the botanical garden. This is the reward I got when I completed the mentor's mission. It was obtained by Mentor Jaina during an exploration of the ruins. It is said to be a kind of magic food cultivated by wizards in ancient times. Lilith took out a set of small tea sets, and then took out a silver coffee pot. She carefully took out a palm-sized crystal bottle, scooped out 3 spoonfuls of brown powder with a small spoon, and then poured it into the silver coffee pot. As soon as the powder was taken out, Allen felt that there was abundant mana in it. After the water boiled, it was poured into the silver coffee pot. Soon, a strong coffee aroma filled the whole cabin. Allen felt that his mana was active, and his heart was full of interest in this Moorish coffee. The coffee pot was not big, just 1 cup per person. Try it, this thing is very good for wizards. As for the effect, I won't say it. You can experience it yourself. Lilith blinked mischievously, and then distributed the coffee to everyone. Allen took the coffee with both hands, sniffed it deeply, and was slightly shocked. Put a piece of sugar in it, and stir it with a spoon to dissolve it. I took a sip, and it tasted bitter at first, but there was a fragrance in the bitterness, and it was slightly sweet at the end. It tasted good, but there was no special discovery. When I was wondering, Allen suddenly found that his mana suddenly became active and his whole body was warm. A weak warm current kept flowing around his body, and the mana became active wherever it passed. Allen closed his eyes slightly, and began to feel it. Ding. A beneficial magic substance was found, and the host's mana activity increased. Ding. A beneficial magic substance was found, and the host's mana recovery was accelerated. Ding. A beneficial magic substance was found, and the host's mental power was slightly improved. Ding. A beneficial magic substance was found, and the host's physical strength recovery was accelerated after a long time. He exhaled, opened his eyes, and looked at the remaining half cup of coffee. His eyes were full of surprise. He looked up at the other people, and everyone's eyes were full of surprise. It seemed that they had discovered the magic of coffee. "Thank you so much, Lilith," Arthur said gratefully. "This is the first time I've tasted something that's been rumored. This is a reward from my mentor." "How is it?" Lilith's eyes curved into a crescent. "This coffee can increase mana activity and slightly increase mental strength. It's a rare thing." Allen nodded. "This kind of Moorish coffee was obtained by Mentor Jaina in the ruins, and then spent a lot of time to cultivate it again. It's also rare in the botanical garden. Only Mentor Jaina can produce it. Every time it matures, a large number of wizards come to buy it," Lilith explained. "I've heard that the academy produces a magical coffee. I didn't expect it to be grown by Lilith's mentor. I saw it once at a wizard secret meeting. 1 ounce costs 20 magic stones. It was snatched up as soon as it appeared. We can taste it because of Lilith's kindness." Ruth glanced at the coffee with a look of enjoyment, closed her eyes and savored it. "This time is really lucky. This coffee can activate mana, which is very helpful for casting or constructing spell models. It can also speed up meditation. We need to meditate quickly after we finish, so as not to waste Lilith's kindness." Arthur nodded. Several people stopped talking, finished their coffee, and meditated quietly. The botanical garden is a special place in the Five Rings Tower. It is a space separated by rune arrays. Allen has never been in it, but the environment inside is completely different from the outside world, and the element concentration is far beyond the outside world. When the Five Rings Tower was built, several legendary wizards worked together to build an element pool. The element pool is a high concentration of elemental power gathered into a liquid. Now the entire range of the Five Rings Tower is affected by the element pool. Spells are easier to release within the range of the Five Rings Tower, and the meditation effect is better. The earth vein energy is also connected to the element pool, which is one of the most important places in the Five Rings Tower. The botanical garden was built based on the element pool. 1/5 of the element energy in the element pool is allocated to the botanical garden. Supply the botanical garden for use, maintain the element concentration in it, and make the environment inside close to the environment for the growth of magic plants, so as to plant magic plants on a large scale. After all, the advancement of wizards requires a lot of resources, and these magic plants are one of the most important resources. Every wizard in the botanical garden is a leader in the academic school. The potion cultivation technology must be very high. Wild magical plants are rare, and most of them grow in remote places, many of which are dangerous. Most of them are guarded by magical beasts, and are difficult to obtain, and there are not many of them, so this kind of botanical garden is a facility that every wizard organization must build. Chapter 31 Carrion Crows. Please recommend. Please collect. After meditation, everyone took out sleeping bags from the dimensional bag, and began to rest. Allen took the initiative to ask for night watch. Gray was in charge in the second half of the night. The others rested at ease. The next rest point would be rotated. The night was dark, and there were a few roars of wild beasts from time to time in the distance, but they did not dare to approach here. Gray woke up on time in the second half of the night to take over. Allen also took out his sleeping bag to rest. After walking in the swamp for a day, Allen's physical fitness was also a little tired, so he fell asleep quickly. The next morning, everyone had breakfast and set off again to patrol the surrounding area. The place they needed to go today was the gathering point of the scavenger crows. Everyone was ready. Although Lilith belonged to the botanical garden wizard, the botanical garden did not mean that they were all academicians. The current Five-Ring Tower has begun to cooperate in casting spells. Just like a patrol team, there will be main attackers, auxiliary, and healers to cooperate. It is no longer like a black wizard who is all round. Although the strength is high, it is too difficult to train. The single strength is naturally high for the black wizard, but when the number of wizards increases, the combat effectiveness of the white wizard will quickly reverse. Collective cooperation will greatly enhance their combat effectiveness, which is why white wizards can always suppress black wizards. Lilith is good at healing. After passing the assessment of the subject of combat wizards, she joined the patrol team. In the Black Forest, a carrion crow opened its blood-red eyes, jumped in the woods, and combed its feathers from time to time. There were dozens of crows in this group. Carrion crows are gregarious animals. Their individual strength is not high, but their number is extremely large, so you need to be careful when hunting them, and you can't go deep alone. Because once teammates fail to rescue in time, they may be overwhelmed by these crows. The carrion crow is half a meter in size, far beyond the size of an ordinary crow. This crow is said to be the product of magic radiation. The strongest of them can reach the strength of a high-level knight apprentice, and has no spell ability. Its feathers are a good magic material, and can also be used to make clothes, which is expensive. Carrion crows have some of the same habits as crows, such as liking to collect bright things and shiny stones. It is mentioned in many wizard travelogues that gold nuggets, gems, glass, and other shiny items are found in the nests of carrion crows. Some even found elemental crystals in them. Elemental crystals are a type of elemental crystals that are only produced in worlds where elemental tides have occurred. They can serve as energy, activate golems, and teleport arrays to replace many energy sources. This world used to have a lot of production, but now the production has decreased after the elemental tides have ended, and it is even rarer now. In fact, to be precise, magic stones are also a type of elemental crystals, but magic stones are formed by the convergence of earth vein energy, and the energy they contain is far lower than elemental energy. At the same time, elemental crystals are mostly single element. The most abundant place for elemental crystals is in the 4 elemental planes, but the elemental planes are not safe, and are very dangerous if you don't have enough strength. The nest of the scavenging crow is a natural treasure chest in the wild. Many wizards like to visit its nest. This is a game between the European Emperor and the non-European chieftain. As the saying goes, the mysterious cannot save the non-European chieftain. This is an opportunity to verify whether you are the European Emperor or the non-European chieftain. The group walked at a fast speed and soon came to the Black Forest. From time to time, groups of scavenging crows could be seen taking off and landing in the woods. The crowd did not go too deep. One thought that going deep in the forest would alarm too many tribes. The scavenging crows are divided into small groups, which are easy for everyone to deal with. If too many groups are alarmed at once, it will cause great trouble. Finding a small group of dozens of crows in the woods, everyone began to approach slowly. These scavenging crows can fly. Once they fly away, it will take a lot of time to clear enough of them. Allen and his friends don't want to stay here for a few days. Swoosh. Suddenly a sharp arrow flew over, nailing the strongest one of the crows to the tree with one arrow, followed by more than a dozen arrows shot continuously, shooting down more than a dozen scavenging crows that had just flown. The other crows were in chaos instantly. Without a leader to command them, the group of crows was in a mess. Some flew away directly, while others rushed forward to attack fiercely. The division of labor was clear. Allen and Arthur used bows and arrows to deal with the strong ones, and the other 3 dealt with those who wanted to escape. The bows and arrows continued to shoot. These scavenging crows quacked, and their black claws flashed with metallic luster. They broke through the bows and arrows, and grabbed Allen's eyes fiercely. Looking at this posture, if they were caught, the eye might be caught out. Allen had no time to put an arrow in his hand, and threw the sharp arrow in his hand, directly piercing the scavenging crow. He threw down the longbow, pulled out the cross sword at his waist with his right hand, and cut another scavenging crow into 2 pieces, then jumped up and chopped the crows that rushed up one by one with the long sword. At the same time, he mobilized the magic power in his body. Flash. A dazzling light instantly bloomed in Allen's hands, and dozens of crows around him were instantly blinded and quacked in panic. The effect of secondary spells can produce unexpected results when used in the right place. Whirlwind. Facing the scavenging crows that surrounded him from all directions and lost his sight, Allen directly used the knight's signature skill to deal with sieges. He swung his long sword and made a whirlwind slash, accompanied by blood splattering and bird feathers flying. More than a dozen scavenging crows were directly cut into 2 sections. The surroundings were empty in an instant. Only a few were left around, and they were quickly killed by others with bows and arrows. The rest had already flown away after the leader died. This battle was easily resolved. After counting, there were at least 40 scavenging crows on the ground. The best feathers on their bodies were collected, and Lilith was already standing next to the crow's nest, and began to open the treasure chest. Seeing her appearance, she took out a small handkerchief to wipe her hands and slowly dismantled the nest built by the crows with branches. Seeing the sunlight reflected inside, Lilith's eyes lit up, and she quickly opened it. Her face, which was full of surprise just now, instantly collapsed. There were only a few gold coins inside. Everyone left here and continued to hunt other small groups. Lilith used a plant mimicry spell, which could hide everyone with the help of the surrounding trees. This spell was very useful in the forest and could help the caster hide his body and not be easily discovered. However, if you see it at a close distance, you can tell it apart at a glance. After all, this is only a secondary spell, but it is enough for these scavenging crows. When they got close to a certain range, Allen pulled the bow and arrow. The chip was calibrated, and then the leader of the scavenging crows was shot dead with one arrow. Then he repeated the previous routine. There was no accident in the middle, and the battle was easily resolved. Then he collected the spoils and went to the next target. After working hard for most of the day, several people killed hundreds of scavenging crows, which had reached the hunting number. With the spoils, everyone began to leave the Black Forest. At this time, the scavenging crows in the forest had become sparse. While it was still early, everyone took a break and started heading to the next rest stop. Chapter 32 Bloodthirsty Bee. Several people walked through the woods. Allen led the way with a crossed sword. He swung the sword, cut the weeds and thorns, and opened a small path. The sword chopped on a vine. Cry. A piercing howl exploded instantly. Allen felt as if his brain was hit hard by a hammer. He felt dizzy and tinnitus, and he was unstable. The scenery in front of him was doubled. He quickly used the crossed sword to support the ground to maintain his balance. He almost stood on his heels. He felt that his feet were still a little soft. It took a while to recover, but his nostrils and ears were cold. When he touched them with his hands, they were bright red. After a while, the pain of brain tearing was slightly reduced. Looking back, except for Arthur standing against the tree trunk, everyone else fell to the ground. Blood oozes from the nose and ears. Although he looked embarrassed, he was not in danger. One by one, he had recovered. "How are you?" Allen asked. "I'm fine, but my headache is getting worse. I need to rest," Arthur said, panting. "We also have a headache. There is nothing else wrong. We need to rest." What was that just now? Ruth squatted on the ground, rubbing her temple with one hand and holding up the staff with the other hand to stand up. That should be a screaming banshee, a demonized plant. Lilith wiped the blood off her face and said, "Chip, scan the surrounding environment. Open the library and scan the demonized plants." A strange light spread. Soon, many marks appeared in Allen's vision. Screaming Banshee found. Bloody Mary found. Datura found. Bloodthirsty Bee Swarm scanned. Allen saw the bloodthirsty bee swarm stiffen, then recovered, and then waved his hand quickly. "Retreat first. There is a big trouble here." Although everyone looked puzzled, they saw Allen's serious look, nodded to each other, and slowly retreated. After retreating nearly a kilometer, Allen breathed a sigh of relief. "Allen, what did you find?" Arthur asked when he saw Allen stop. "Bloodthirsty bee." Allen emphasized a noun. The surroundings suddenly became cold. Then everyone was excited again. "It's a blood-sucking bee. Did you see it clearly?" "Yes, I saw it clearly." Allen nodded and said, "The blood-sucking bee is a kind of demonized wild bee, about the size of a fist, in groups, usually collecting pollen around, but this wild bee is ferocious and often attacks other animals. The poisonous sting of its tail is so toxic that even a high-level knight apprentice will instantly swell up a big lump if hit by it, and the pain is unbearable. The physique of an ordinary person will lose half of his life in an instant." There were at least thousands of blood-sucking bees there just now. Although they were shaken to pieces by the screaming banshee, once they recovered, they were not something that Allen and his friends could deal with without preparation. However, although this kind of blood-sucking bee is dangerous, the honey it produces is of the best quality. The quality of blood-sucking honey also depends on the distribution of surrounding plants. However, the price of the lowest grade blood-sucking honey in the market is 100 magic stones per ounce. If the quality is good, the price will be even more exaggerated. This kind of honey has a magical effect. It can improve mental strength without any side effects. This effect is also very effective for formal wizards. At the same time, this kind of honey will also improve physical condition. The magic potions, or rather human transformation experiments used by wizards in this world, will have great sequelae. From their point of view, it is worthwhile to pay for some power. And this kind of honey can reduce the side effects after human experiments and eliminate radiation. Many large wizard organizations have tried to breed blood-sucking bees, but few have succeeded. This kind of blood-sucking bee is extremely irritable. The queen bee has a strong mental strength and is difficult to be enslaved. Sometimes it is suicide if it can't resist. It is said that there is a successfully domesticated blood-sucking queen bee in the Five Rings Tower. However, the blood-sucking bee population generally reaches a maximum of 1 or 2,000. When this number is reached, it will no longer reproduce. All eggs will be dormant. Only one blood-sucking bee dies before another one hatches. And there is only one queen bee. Once this one dies, the other one will hatch. If there is no death, the larvae of the blood-sucking queen bee will always be asleep. The bloodthirsty honey produced by the academy is not sold at all. Only occasionally some will flow out of the market, but most of them are obtained from bloodthirsty beehives found in the wild. If the bloodthirsty bees are attacked, and their honey is taken away, they will start to migrate. Because of their precious value, wizards have captured a large number of them to extract honey for a period of time, and these bloodthirsty bees have become increasingly rare. I didn't expect that there would be a bloodthirsty bee colony so close to the academy. In the Allen chip scan just now, it was found that the bloodthirsty beehive is an earthen nest with a height of 6 meters. According to the calculation of the time of establishment, such a nest will take about 2 years. Everyone came to such a remote place because of the clearance of scavenging crows, and the last clearance of scavenging crows was 2 years ago, which means that this beehive was established after the last clearance of scavenging crows. The bloodthirsty honey stored in it for 2 years will definitely make several people excited. What's more, this honey can enhance mental strength. Although the effect will gradually lose effect after a few times, it is enough to save everyone a lot of time. Although blood-sucking bees are dangerous, that is when there is no defense. If there is defense, it is not easy to eliminate blood-sucking bees, but there are still many ways to drive them away. Blood-sucking bees are afraid of cold. If they are formal wizards, a first level spell Ice Storm is enough to clear the field. Allen and his friends do not have that kind of strength, but there are other ways according to their characteristics. Everyone, this group of blood-sucking bees have lived here for 2 years. The honey inside is enough for the 5 of us to share equally, and there is still some surplus. This kind of top quality material must not be let go. The team leader Arthur said excitedly. He is already a 3rd level wizard apprentice. If he gets this honey, he will soon reach the peak of the 3rd level wizard apprentice after taking it. This is extremely important to him. The sooner he impacts the formal wizard, the higher the success rate. It is basically impossible for him to give up what is in front of him. The other people also understand that maybe after this action, everyone in the team will become a 3rd level wizard apprentice. Everyone understands the meaning of bloodthirsty honey, so we need to sign a contract. This is discovered by the 5 of us, so 5 people must work together to take out the honey. Everyone must keep it secret. Once the news leaks out, those official wizards will not be polite. We will get nothing. In order to ensure that the news spreads, they will make us shut up forever, Allen said with a serious look. Seeing everyone nod, Allen took out a piece of parchment and began to draft a contract. The contract written in Nessa was completed quickly. Everyone circulated it to each other and checked and confirmed that there were no loopholes. The contract stipulates that everyone cannot attack each other and must keep it absolutely confidential. The bloodthirsty honey obtained is divided equally among the 5 people. 5 people need to go together to take out the honey, then sign their own names and secret marks, then cast a spell together, and the parchment contract burned directly to ashes. Red marks appeared on everyone's wrists that only the few people who signed the contract could see. Once someone violates the contract, this mark will instantly pierce into their soul and pollute their soul. However, this contract is time limited to 2 years, but by that time, everyone has already used up the honey. Chapter 33, Seeking, please collect and recommend. The author is rolling around to ask for votes. After the contract was signed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and their guarded expressions relaxed a little. It was hard to guarantee that someone would take risks with such a valuable treasure. Fortunately, everyone did not get carried away, but agreed on the contract. Okay, the contract is signed, and the next action is guaranteed. Let's discuss how to get the honey. Those blood-sucking bees are not easy to deal with. Arthur put the staff that he had just pulled out back, and said with a relaxed look. Allen looked at it, and shook his head secretly. Arthur was ready to take action at any time just now, but Allen was not worried. At such a close distance, there was no time to cast a spell. Allen was confident that he could take him down, but the remaining few people would be difficult to deal with. Once they united, he would definitely be the one to suffer, so if you can avoid taking action, don't take action. Once you have to take action, you must strike first. Although white wizards are much better than black wizards, there is also a word called hypocrite, which is the name given by those cruel black wizards. Chip. Collect all the information of the X-loving bees. Ding. The task has been established. Please wait while searching. Ding. The search is complete. The content transmission begins. Allen flipped through the information from the chip in his mind and said, there are many ways to deal with X-loving bees. Excluding those with low success rates and high strength requirements, I found a suitable method. What method? Tell me. Lilith asked. X-loving bees are afraid of cold and smoke like ordinary bees, but their tolerance is far greater. Although we can now release the secondary spell of ice breathing to deal with cold, the range of this spell is not large. It is impossible to freeze all X-loving bees. Then we can only consider using smoke. Ordinary smoke is not very effective against X-loving bees. I remember the map marked that there is a group of black magic wolves in the southwest, right? Allen asked Arthur. Yes, there is a group of black magic wolves there, and the population is not large. Why do we need to use them as bait? We can't control so many black magic wolves. Arthur thought for a while and said, are there 100? Allen did not answer, and continued to ask. No, the patrol team updated the data last month and there are 60. Arthur said directly. 60, barely enough. Allen thought for a while and said, what do you need us to do, Allen? Don't keep us in suspense. Tell us quickly. Ruth couldn't help asking. Okay, I'll tell you my plan. You can take a look. If you agree, just do it. If you have any questions, we will continue to discuss. Allen said with a smile. The feces of the black magic wolf has a pungent smell. The black magic wolf always uses these feces to mark the territory. After burning, these feces will emit a strong irritating gas. This smoke, together with the poisonous smoke produced by the mandrake powder, is enough to drive away the blood-sucking bees. The feces of the black magic wolf is so disgusting. It makes my scalp numb. That thing is really disgusting. The two girls complained in a low voice, but did not object. Compared with the honey of the X-sucking bees, this is nothing. If everyone agrees, let's assign the tasks. Lilith, you should have a deep understanding of magic plants, so collecting mandrake flowers will be left to you. Any questions? Allen looked around and said, no problem, I will collect enough mandrake flowers. Lilith nodded and agreed. Gray, you go monitor the X-loving bees. Don't let anyone take away the honey while we are away. Okay, I know what to do. Gray nodded and agreed. The eye of reconnaissance is very convenient for this kind of work. The three of us will go collect the feces of the black magic wolf. Try to collect enough materials today, and then we will take out the honey tomorrow, to avoid more trouble at night. Allen said to the other two. Okay, let's get started now. Arthur and Ruth nodded. Let's act. Gather at this rest point before the sun sets, and be careful. Allen pointed to a place on the map and said, and after seeing everyone nod, they each went to do their tasks. There is a valley in the southwest. The valley is not big, but the climate is good. A group of black magic wolves regard this place as a breeding ground. The black magic wolf is a low-level demon beast, and its strength is equivalent to that of a mid-level knight apprentice. It is a social animal, and the strength of the black magic wolf leader can reach the knight level at most. Wolves are creatures that bully the weak and fear the strong, and will not easily attack humans, because thousands of years of lessons have been deeply ingrained in their blood. Therefore, except for the hungry black magic wolves, few black magic wolves attack towns. However, if they are alone in the wild and surrounded by black magic wolves, they will not refuse to add food. However, for wizards, even if they are just wizard apprentices, these black magic wolves are not enough. The three came to the Wolf Valley, which is surrounded by mountains on three sides. It is not very cold in winter and the temperature is constant throughout the 4 seasons. No wonder this group of black magic wolves want to breed here. The surrounding bushes exuded a pungent smell. Allen took out a few masks and gave them to the other 2. After putting them on, the 3 began to work, casting the magician's hand, and began to collect the feces of the surrounding black magic wolves. The 3 were unwilling to use the dimensional bag to pack this thing, so they had to cut down a few trees and make a simple carriage. Then he manipulated the magician's hand to pile the wolf feces on the car, and Arthur used the binding spell to catch a few black magic wolves. He wanted to catch a few more. The others should have recognized the wizard and fled away without a home. It seems that the wizard left them with a deep psychological shadow. This kind of wolf is about 2 meters and 3 meters tall, and it is also 1 meter and 2 meters tall. It looks very strong. Put a rope on the black magic wolf and tie the other end to the car to make 3 dog-drawn trailers. There are 2 black magic wolves in each car. After working for a long time, they finally collected enough wolf feces and cast a spell to drive the wolf car to the gathering point. The journey was smooth and there were no other emergencies. They arrived at the agreed location before dark. The afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled in the black forest. Not far from the woods, a simple hut stood alone on a small earthen slope. After arriving at the place, the exhausted black wolf was finally untied. Each of them could not stand steadily. Several cars were in a hurry and did not make wheels. Instead, they used sleds. Then a piece of open space was marked out, and a simple rune array was used to surround the car and the black wolf. The 3 of them prepared to wash and rest. Although they did not stick this thing, they still had a smell on their bodies. The water element gathered enough pure water, and then wrapped it with the fire element to heat it. The water ball was manipulated to wrap the whole person. The water flow flowed on the surface of the body by itself. The washing was completed soon. The water ball was peeled off, and the fire element was controlled to dry the clothes. It was done. If you want to add some petals, just throw them into the water ball. It is simple, fast and convenient. Soon the other 2 also came to the rest point. When it was getting dark, the cabin reignited the stove. Chapter 34 Bloodthirsty Beehive. Please collect. Please recommend. The fire in the house had already lit up. Everyone sat around. Lilith shouted with interest, "Come on, everyone, come open the treasure box. 2 for each person. Maybe there will be unexpected surprises." Then she took out several crow nests from the dimensional bag and distributed them to everyone. Several people smiled at each other. These nests were the nests of the leader of the scavenging crows. They were not small. 1 for each person took up 1/3 of the hut. Sitting on stools made of tree stumps, everyone began to dismantle the treasure box. The crow's nest was built with a lot of branches, with only a very small exit, and some soft hay inside. When I casually dismantled the nest, as usual, it was a black hand. There were only a few bird feathers inside, which fluctuated back and forth with the air, like a silent mockery of Allen. The other people had more or less things, metal pieces, some uncarved gemstones, a few pieces of gold, and 1 with a few bird eggs. It seems that, if you want to get rich with this kind of treasure box, you really need a lot of luck. Lilith, are there enough mandrake flowers? Allen wanted to confirm whether there were any loopholes in the plan. Don't worry, I collected some mature mandrake flowers and made 2 bottles of mandrake juice. As he said this, he took out 2 wine bottle-sized crystal bottles from the dimensional bag. The crystal bottles contained a purple juice, which was mandrake juice. Well, let's rest up tonight. We will go to get honey early tomorrow morning, and then complete the patrol mission. Arthur nodded and said, I will be on guard tonight. Gray and Allen were on guard yesterday. Let's take a rest today. Ruth, you will be on guard for the first half of the night, and I will be on guard for the second half of the night. Okay, Captain. Ruth nodded and agreed. There was no conversation all night. Only a few roars of beasts came from the distant forest from time to time, and no animals dared to disturb them. It was just dawn, and everyone was ready. After eating dry food, Alan, Arthur and the other two put ropes on the black magic wolf again and drove it towards the nest of the bloodthirsty bees. The weather is very good today and the wind is northwest. Walking from here is just upwind, which can save a lot of effort. Everyone came to a distance of less than 500 meters from the bloodthirsty bee nest. If they speed up their pace, the chance of being discovered will be greatly increased. The 6-meter high nest of the bloodthirsty bees in the distance is very conspicuous, and a group of black bloodthirsty bees are flying back and forth in the air. After releasing the 6 black magic wolves that have been played, these excited tears filled their eyes, and the cheerful figures ran away in a flash. It is estimated that they will never return to the Wolf Valley again. Wearing a mask, controlling the wizard's hand, heaped the wolf dung into 3 piles, poured some kerosene on it, and threw a flame bead on it. In an instant, the 3 piles of wolf dung burned up. Billowing black smoke came out, and Lillian waved the magic wand in her hand. The mandrake juice in the crystal bottle turned into a lavender smoke mixed with the wolf smoke. The smell around was unbearable for everyone, but thinking of the honey that was about to be obtained, strength surged in their hearts. Arthur and the other two used the whirlwind technique to control the smoke to slowly drift towards the blood-sucking bee's nest, and the blood-sucking bees that were originally flying all over the sky were dispersed. Not far away, many blood-sucking bees did not want to be driven away and kept rushing into the smoke to break through the blockade, but they were soon dizzy and fell to the ground by the poisonous smoke. Some of them could still twitch a few times, and more were already dead. Gradually, the smoke began to force into the hive. The blood-sucking bees that were originally in a state of disarray suddenly stopped retreating and rushed into the smoke fearlessly. The impact of a large number of blood-sucking bees caused the smoke to be somewhat deformed, but with the subsequent support, they still slowly and firmly advanced. More and more blood-sucking bees fell to the ground, and the swarm in the air became thinner and thinner. In a short while, these blood-sucking bees would be wiped out. At this time, a blood-sucking bee as big as a basketball flew out of the nest with the help of several strong blood-sucking bees. Her body was much larger than that of the blood-sucking bee, but her abdomen was more than 4 times the size of her body. At this time, the queen of the blood-sucking bees. It seems that the bloodthirsty bees finally couldn't stand it anymore and began to escort the queen bee to escape. Alan and others did not chase them, but continued to manipulate the smoke to advance slowly. After a while, the bloodthirsty bees had evacuated, and the smoke completely covered the vicinity of the hive. After seeing that there were no bloodthirsty bees, several people extinguished the poisonous smoke. They cast the whirlwind spell to start blowing away the poisonous smoke. The 5 people jointly cast spells, and soon the poisonous smoke that originally covered hundreds of meters around was blown away. Although there was still a pungent smell in the air, the 5 people couldn't wait any longer. After looking at each other, they rushed to the bloodthirsty hive at the same time and came close to observe the huge hive. The height of the hive was 6 meters. It was made of loess and a substance secreted by worker bees. It was as strong as rock, but this defense was not difficult for everyone. Alan waved his sword and directly cut open the nest from the side. There were countless holes in the hive, and there was a huge passage in the middle. There were many bloodthirsty bees that didn't have time to get out and were poisoned to death in the hive by the poisonous smoke. Below the beehive is the incubation room of the bloodthirsty bees. There are densely packed bee eggs here. Some are mature and ready to crawl out, and more are translucent eggs. This is also a very precious food. Although it cannot increase mental strength, it can improve physical condition, and the effect is better than honey. Each one is as big as a baby's fist. It looks crystal clear and very charming. The 5 people no longer hesitated and worked together to collect all the bee eggs. Below is where the honey is. After uncovering the propolis on the surface, a sweet smell came out. Several people felt comfortable and carefully took out the crystal bottle, put the honey in. The 1-ounce crystal bottle was filled with a full 21 bottles. Everyone was smiling. After collecting the honey, everyone dug out all the propolis. Propolis is a stabilizer. Many precious medicines that are difficult to refine will greatly reduce the difficulty after adding propolis. It can be said that propolis is a universal stabilizer. After collecting, the beehive was destroyed, and the original traces were destroyed. Without stopping, everyone went directly to the next rest point. Because they were in a hurry to distribute the spoils, they didn't stop along the way, and it took them 2 hours to get to the place. The 5 people set up a rune formation, and then went into the house, impatiently taking out all the harvest, slowly placing them in a pile. The first thing to be distributed was naturally the bloodthirsty honey, which was what the few people were most concerned about, and the 5 people distributed it equally. Each person got 4 bottles of honey plus 0.2 ounces. Although the grade of honey was not the best, it was also medium. If 1 ounce of bloodthirsty honey appeared on the black market, it would cost at least 150 magic stones, and it was in short supply. If you want to improve your mental strength, 3 bottles is the limit, and more will not have any effect. The rest will make a lot of money, whether you exchange or sell them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Distribution. Please collect. Please recommend. The most precious honey has been distributed, and the remaining are bee eggs and propolis. The bee eggs, which are the size of a baby's fist, are crystal clear, and are precious ingredients. Their biggest role is to benefit wizards who use human body modification. Most wizards have used human body modification. After all, the human body is too weak, and it takes a lot of time and resources to improve it. Human body modification is to gain higher power at a relatively small cost. They will transplant the organs or parts of other demonized creatures to their own bodies. If they succeed, their power will be greatly increased. For example, there is a person in the 5 Rings Tower who transplanted the throat of a banshee, withstood the backlash of blood, and gained the ability of the banshee's howl. His strength is also among the best among formal wizards, but the sequelae are also serious. His body is eroded by negative energy, and he has become undead. He needs to take potions to suppress it, and bee eggs can greatly alleviate this state. He clicked on the number. There are more than 400 bee eggs, and each person got 90. The amount of propolis is also not small, and on average each person got 3 ounces. After the loot sharing meeting, everyone was unwilling to stay outside the academy any longer. It was noon, and they rushed to the next resting point without stopping. A day later, everyone returned to the school exhausted, and came to the gate. The 2 obsidian statues were still guarding the gate, and sensed everyone's arrival. Stop, apprentice, give the command. The 2-headed eagle statue on the left spoke. Knowledge is power. Arthur said the slogan very straightforwardly. This is the slogan of the patrol team, which will be changed once in a while. Correct answer. The 2-headed eagle jumped up, and returned to the stone platform, turning into a statue again. These 2 statues are a kind of spell, right? Turning creatures into statues. They signed a contract with the academy, and need to serve the academy for a certain number of years. Their strength is formal wizards, and they are stronger than most formal wizards. The group entered the academy through the tree hole at the door, handed over the task at the patrol team's station, said hello to people, and dispersed and left directly. Several people are now carrying good things, but there is no time to waste time here. Allen was in a hurry. He greeted several familiar apprentices on the way, and then went to the dormitory, and closed the door. Chip. Scan the room to see if anyone has entered. Beep. The task has been established, and the scan has begun. Beep. The scan is completed. Everything is normal in the room, and no one has entered. Hearing that everything was normal, Allen was relieved. He moved his fingers slightly, and a breeze appeared in the room, which soon gathered into small whirlwinds and cleared all the dust in the room. Then he arranged a small spell to separate the room from the outside world, so that no sound would be heard by the outside world if anything happened in the room. Chip. Scan my physical fitness. Name. Allen Farkus. Strength. 5.3. Agility. 5.5. Constitution. 5.3. Spirit. 6.3. Mana 63. Looking at the physical fitness, the mental strength is now 6.3. To reach the 3rd level apprentice, it needs to reach 10 points. If you meditate according to the past, it will take at least 3 years, and you need to use secondary meditation potions continuously. But now with the bloodthirsty honey, Allen is confident that he can be promoted to a 3rd level wizard apprentice within a year. He took out the crystal bottle, which contained 1/5 of an ounce of bloodthirsty honey. He had not observed it carefully when collecting it, but now he found that the honey looked shimmering and very tempting. He opened the bottle cap and poured it directly into his mouth. Instantly, his taste buds were filled with a strange sweetness. Allen swore that this was definitely the best honey he had ever eaten in his life. Allen, with a look of surprise on his face, sat down cross-legged and took a meditation posture. The effect of the honey began to take effect. Time passed by minute. After the initial surprise, Allen had already calmed down and continued to practice meditation. With every breath, he felt a stream of elemental energy entering his body and finally merging into his mind. Allen concentrated his will on the spiritual space. As he breathed back and forth, the spiritual space began to slowly expand. The bloodthirsty honey turned into a cool energy in his body, circling around his body, and finally merging into his mind. The mental power in his mind was replenished, and it became visibly larger. Very slowly, but continuously. Several meditation runes also shone brightly. Allen felt as if he had left this world and was floating in the ocean of energy. I don't know how long it took, but when Allen opened his eyes, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The sunlight outside the window shone through the screen window and hit Allen's face, which was a little itchy. Allen stretched his waist and stood up. He felt refreshed and energetic. Chip. Scan my physical fitness. Name: Allen Farkus. Strength: 5.3, agility. 5.5, constitution. 5.3, spirit. 6.5, mana 65. I didn't expect that this bloodthirsty honey would be so effective. It only increased my mental strength by 0.2 in one use, and there were no side effects. It was much better than the secondary meditation potion. If your physical fitness was too low, you would poison yourself to death. It would take a long time to recover after each use. Allen looked excited after checking the properties. It seems that I have to find more of this special food in the future. Allen made a decision in his heart. He thought of the more coffee that Lilith took out. The last time he drank it, it also slightly increased his mental strength. It was said to be produced in the botanical garden. It is estimated that it is very difficult to get it, but if there are seeds, I don't know if I can plant it myself. Chip. Search for information on the cultivation of magic plants. Ding. The task has been established. Searching for information. Please wait. Ding. The task has been completed. Encyclopedia of Magic Plants. Magic Plant Cultivation. On the Evolution of Plants. Stephen. My Botanical Garden. Transmit to the brain. Allen flipped through about a dozen books. He felt his brain swell a little, and a series of pictures and words entered his mind. Allen closed his eyes and began to check. It took a long time for Allen to go through the information. The research on magic plants in this world is focused on its various values, using it to make various medicines or other things. There is not much research on the cultivation of magic plants, only many cultivation techniques. There are many growth environments or diseases and insect pests of many magic plants, but there is not much research on the improvement and cultivation of plants. As for further optimization of cultivation and gene-induced hybrid cultivation, it is not even mentioned. Perhaps the botanical garden has more advanced and complete information. But Allen felt that the wizard technology tree in this world was seriously biased. Biotechnology had already achieved organ transplantation, not only between humans, but even between humans and monsters. The technology was even more mature. After all, although wizards valued knowledge, they were more after power. Chapter 36 Botanical Garden. Please collect. Please recommend. The world I lived in my previous life had already done a very complete study of plants. Perhaps the depth was not as good as this world, but the evolution of plants, the selection and breeding of improved varieties, and other technologies were far beyond this world. But it was too early to think about these things now. If Allen wanted to understand these magical plants, he needed to plant them himself and use chips to collect information. The most convenient place was the botanical garden. Allen only knew Lilith about the botanical garden, but Lilith could not take him in. There were many tasks about the botanical garden in the mission area, and it seemed that he had to take some of them. A shrill scream sounded in the sea of flowers. Several wizard apprentices in the flower field squatted on the ground with pale faces, their eyes wide open, and red blood slowly flowed out of their ears. Some even fainted directly. Allen rubbed his ears. Although the sound was harsh, it was not sonic damage. It was actually a kind of mental damage. Obviously, the rookies had a problem when collecting the juice of the magical plant, the screaming banshee, and were frightened by the innate skill of the magical plant, the banshee's howl. Allen has seen this situation many times. The first time was a few months ago, when he was patrolling. The screaming banshee is a very strange demonic plant. This plant has the same innate skills as the banshee, but its power is far less powerful than that of the banshee. It is said that the original banshee was created based on this plant. The ancient wizard did not know what kind of forbidden spell he used to create the banshee clan. Now Allen is in the botanical garden of the Five Rings Tower. After entering the botanical garden, Allen finally realized how huge the botanical garden is. It should have been created by several legendary wizards. The area is as large as a large city, and it is divided into many small areas. The environment of each small area is also different, and various demonic plants are planted. The element content of the botanical garden is much higher than that of the outside world. Meditation here can increase 20% without using other auxiliary potions. Therefore, it is the dream of many wizard apprentices to obtain the right to live here. Allen has only accepted the task in the mission area and came here to do the task. In the botanical garden, the magic plants will mature after a while. These magic plants are not ordinary plants. Ordinary people will be greatly hurt if they get close to them. Without protective measures, they may die without knowing how. For example, the scream just now. This screaming banshee is a relatively common magic plant here. As long as it senses danger, it will release the innate spell. Ordinary people may be directly shocked by the mental shock and become idiots. Only wizards can resist this mental attack. However, even wizards are affected. Looking at the appearance of those apprentices, Allen smiled unkindly. If you cut a hole in the fruit of this magic plant, a light green liquid will flow out. The juice of this screaming banshee is an ingredient of the awakening potion, which is very consumed. So many such flower fields are planted in the botanical garden. The few people just now accepted the collection task like Allen and came here to collect screaming banshee juice, but their level was not up to standard, so they were entertained by the screaming banshee. For Allen, this kind of thing is very common. These noobs are ignorant, and look at the task area. The tasks here are simple, not dangerous, and the rewards are high. They come to sign up one by one, and they don't think that if it's simple, there will be such a high reward. If you only take the basic magic plant course and come to collect, you will be severely taught a lesson by these magic plants. The collection of screaming banshees is introduced in a book in the library. One of the leaves of this magic plant is its weakness. As long as you scratch it a few times, this magic plant will be deflated. The air sac under the flower will deflate, and it will take some time to be refilled. During this time, it can't release the banshee's howl, and you can safely collect juice. As for which leaf it is, it depends on your eyesight. Allen couldn't tell it at first, but after using the chip scan to compare it several times, he found that there was a leaf on each plant. It looked inconspicuous, but it was consciously hidden by the screaming banshee. So after a few losses, Allen has easily collected the juice of the screaming banshee, but more apprentices need to learn little by little. This group of fresh noobs had to endure this period of time. If they could not complete the task within the specified time, they would be punished. So they could only endure the mental attacks of the screaming banshee and continue to collect. Allen, your speed is getting more and more skilled. Angela took the crystal bottle handed by Allen, observed it and said, it has only been such a short time, and you have completed the collection. The quality is also good, much better than those newcomers. This is your reward. Thank you. You should be more tolerant of newcomers, right? Allen took a magic stone and said with a smile. That's right. After all, there are not many freaks like you. After just a few observations, you can pick as easily as a veteran who has been picking for decades. Angela said with jealousy. I can't help it. Who made me a genius? Allen shrugged helplessly and said in his heart, who made you not have a chip? Okay, don't show off. I know you are a genius. Hearing such shameless words, he rolled his eyes. Tomorrow, the piranha plant needs to collect fruits. Do you accept the task? Angela said after flipping through the book. Let's talk about it tomorrow. These rookies have been howling for the whole morning. Although they have made preparations in advance, they still feel headaches. Go back and rest. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Allen rubbed his temples. Okay, I'll leave you a spot. It's up to you, whether you come or not. Angela thought of the screams that came one after another for a whole morning, which was also funny. After a while, there will be stubborn noobs who come to earn magic stones, but not many can stick to it. Allen greeted them and left along the path. The surface of the botanical garden looks like a fairy tale world. There are giant pumpkins, giant mushrooms, and singing psychedelic grass. However, can you imagine that the laughing gas spores released after the giant mushroom explodes can make your muscles ache with laughter? The scientific name of the giant pumpkin is a horror fruit. It can amplify the human senses and turn what you see into the most feared thing in your heart. Psychedelic grass can even sing, luring people or animals who have always been undecided to come over. If you are not careful, you will be intoxicated by it. If you can't wake up, you may become a vegetable. So everything here looks beautiful, but in fact, for ordinary people, this is a hell hidden under a beautiful appearance. So if you are not a wizard or a wizard apprentice, you can't survive here at all. Chapter 37 Experiment. Please collect. Please recommend. Allen followed the road, passed through a garden, bypassed the woods, and came to a flower bed where thorn flowers were planted. This kind of magic plant has strong magic resistance and physical resistance. Its own thorns will be ejected when attacked. A knight will be stiffened and fall to the ground if hit by a few, so it is generally used as a fence. This is an exit of the botanical garden. The botanical garden is filled with the fragrance of flowers. The magic plants are competing for beauty. There are some beehives on the big trees not far away. This is a kind of magic bee called amethyst bee. It mainly spreads pollen and collects nectar. Although it is not as strong as a bloodthirsty bee, its honey is also a very good food. Although it cannot increase mental strength, it tastes good and has the effect of improving the body. Allen once accepted a task to collect its honey. The reward is an ounce of amethyst honey. This kind of honey can only satisfy Allen's appetite, but it is a good thing for other apprentices, especially those who have taken too much magic potion and their bodies have mutated and deteriorated. However, Allen did not sell it, but took it to the halfling chef in Area B of the restaurant and asked him to make a delicious honey barbecue. Victor, wake up. Allen stood in front of a big tree. This was a big tree that looked like a sycamore tree. The tree knots on the trunk formed an abstract face. Hearing Allen's voice, he slowly moved. Ah, Allen, it's you. Are you leaving? He rubbed his eyes and asked when he saw Allen standing in front of him yawning. Victor, it's only morning. Can't you be more energetic? I'm going out. Allen was speechless about letting this tree man guard the gate in the botanical garden. Everyone knew that tree men liked to sleep and didn't like to move. They actually wanted to let him guard the gate. Aren't they worried that he would fall into sleep when he entered the growth period? At that time, this exit would be closed. Okay, I'll pay attention. As he said that, a tree hole as high as a person appeared on the trunk. Walking into the tree hole, a white light emerged. The teleportation array was activated, and Allen's figure disappeared instantly. The world was spinning. In a room in the academy, Allen's figure appeared. Damn it, can't these people improve the teleportation array? This kind of short distance teleportation array has such a bad experience. The energy of the earth veins only needs to be increased to support a protective shield, which will make it much more comfortable. This group of people won't allow it. Although he has sat in the teleportation array dozens of times, Allen still can't help complaining. The people who made the teleportation array reduced the energy consumption to the minimum and cancelled all kinds of protective system decompression systems. The result is that this short distance teleportation array feels almost the same as the long distance teleportation array, and it is not even called for exercise and preparation for the long distance teleportation array. He rubbed his head, pushed open the door, and went straight out of the hall. In the past few months, in addition to patrolling once a month, Allen would come back to the mission area to accept the tasks of the botanical garden whenever he was free. There are many kinds of tasks in the botanical garden, and most of the time they are very tedious and unfriendly to novices, but if you can persist in completing them, there are still many benefits. For example, the various specialties of the botanical garden can only be obtained as rewards if you accept the tasks of the botanical garden. For example, more coffee. The coffee that I tasted last time at Lilith's place can only be obtained by wizard apprentices after completing the tasks of the botanical garden. Most of the tasks issued by the botanical garden are about magic plants entering the mature stage, which need to be collected manually. This kind of magic plant collection is sustainable and does not damage the main body of the plant, so it requires high skills, and the formal wizards of the botanical garden do not have time to do it, so they issue a large number of tasks for apprentices to do. After accepting a large number of these tasks, Allen has become familiar with the wizard apprentices of the botanical garden. The wizard apprentices here have passed the assessment and then been accepted as disciples by the formal wizards to help the formal wizards deal with the sundries. They have a lot of seeds of magic plants in their hands. In addition to accepting tasks during this period, Allen has also exchanged many seeds with these wizard apprentices. Most of the seeds of magic plants are already available, and there are many plants, because their valuable part is the seeds, so the seeds are very expensive, and they have not been obtained. However, Allen has begun to prepare to cultivate some common magic plants. After so many tasks, Allen analyzed the soil of the botanical garden. The data obtained show that these soils have not changed much compared to the soil outside, but the energy content is relatively high, and the element in the surrounding air are much higher than the outside world after scanning. The other conditions are not much different. Allen got some soil from the botanical garden, and then prepared a large flower pot filled with soil from the botanical garden. He chose the mandrake and green radish, which are the lowest level of magic plants, with the lowest value and the lowest requirements for the growing environment. He bought things in the trading area and returned to the dormitory. Because Allen did not have his own magic tower, he could only experiment in a small room. He cleared a piece of open space on the balcony, placed 3 flower pots here, and planted seeds. There are 2 types of soil. One flower pot is ordinary soil, and the other 2 are soil secretly obtained from the botanical garden. Allen is going to do a simple comparative experiment. Plant mandrake in 3 flower pots respectively. The first pot is ordinary soil, and the second and third pots are soil from the botanical garden. Then take out a disc, which is something commissioned by the alchemy workshop. This thing has no other use. The only effect is to limit the elemental substances in the air to a small range, which is only slightly larger than the flower pot. Allen opened it and placed it on the third flower pot, and then took out a magic stone. Chip. Scan the element concentration. Ding. The mission has been established. The current element concentration is 0.5%. Allen took the magic stone and carefully probed the magic power into it, slowly guiding the element energy and the magic stone out. Chip. Monitor the element concentration in the flower pot. Ding. The mission has been established and is being monitored. The current element concentration is 0.51%, and it continues to rise. The concentration is 0.55, 0.58, 0.6. Allen guided the element energy into the flower pot while monitoring the rising concentration and slowly adjusted it to the element concentration in the botanical garden. As the concentration continued to rise, the chip finally began to prompting. Host, please note that the element concentration is close to the target value of 0.223, and the current concentration is 0.221. Ding. Reach the target concentration. Allen stopped the action. At this time, the element concentration of the third flower pot was consistent with that of the botanical garden. In this way, Allen can compare the effects of soil and element concentration on the magic plants such as the mandragora flower. This is the first step for future research. Green radish can enhance soil fertility. This magical plant is always planted with other magical plants. When mature, it can be used to feed herbivorous magical beasts. The effect of mandragora is that it is an ingredient of secondary meditation potion. It is not expensive, but easy to sell. Chapter 38 Mandragora Flower Experiment 1. Allen did not take any more tasks from the botanical garden during this period. Every day, besides attending some advanced courses, he meditated in the dormitory. Allen had already taken an ounce of bloodthirsty honey. Although honey has no side effects, it takes time to absorb. If the interval is too short, a lot of medicinal effects will be wasted. Therefore, Allen strictly controls the interval in this world and pursues maximum benefits. Name: Allen Farkus. Strength 5.4, Agility 5.5, Constitution 5.4, Spirit 8.1, Mana 81. Compared with a few months ago, it has improved a lot. Allen calculated that at most half a year, his mental power will reach the critical point and break through the 3rd level wizard apprentice. Compared with other people of the same period, Allen is a big step ahead, even faster than Jerry, who is a 5th level qualification. This day, Allen returned to the dormitory after dinner. As soon as he walked into the corridor, he heard a strange cry. Looking up, he saw a crow standing on the chandelier at the top of the corridor. The crow was not big, but his eyes were shining and very energetic. He stared at Allen. When he saw Allen going up, he even raised his wings to say hello. Allen was also full of question marks. Before he could figure out the reason, the crow flew down directly. Quack. Allen. Hello. Hello. Whose magic pet are you? Quack. My name is Ryan. Do you have any food? I'm starving. Allen shrugged and said, I'm sorry, Ryan. I don't have any food either. I think you should go find Albert. You signed a contract with him, right? Quack. How do you know that I signed a contract with Albert? The crow tilted its head and looked at it. Allen, you're back. Ryan, why are you here? I've been looking for you for a long time. At this time, a voice came from behind. Looking back, I saw the thin Albert just coming up the stairs. Quack. Albert, I'm starving. If you're a step later, you won't see your close friend again. The crow Ronald flew over directly. Is this your magic pet partner? Allen stood aside and looked at it for a few times and said, yes, I just signed a contract some time ago. Albert said with a proud look on his face. Look, is he very smart? He casually took out a handful of beans and stretched out his palm for the crow Ryan to peck at. You should know that it is not cheap to raise a magic pet companion during the wizard apprenticeship stage. This crow should be a scavenger crow. Allen looked at it for a few times and said, I know, but I think it's okay. The magic stones obtained from raising magic beasts are enough for my expenses. I have already signed up for advanced knowledge. By the way, this is not an ordinary scavenger crow. He is a mutant. Albert said seriously. Well, it seems that the breeding industry is indeed very rich, but this crow is nothing special except for its intelligence. Besides, signing a contract will come with elementary wisdom skills. With the intelligence of the crow, simple communication is still possible. Allen did not think that this crow was special. Quack. How is it possible? I, Ryan, am the smartest among crows. How can those crows compare with me? Hearing that, Allen looked down on him. The crow that was eating food instantly exploded. Okay, you are the smartest. Allen shrugged and did not argue with him. Allen, you should know that I have a talent. Albert said with a blink of his eyes. Animal affinity? I know, it's not a very heaven-defying talent. Allen chuckled, thinking that my red dragon bloodline can beat you by several streets. But there is a very special ability. Albert looked like you're going to beg me. I'll tell you, if I beg you. Allen, who knew his personality very well, didn't say anything, pretending to turn around and leave. Hey, don't go. Albert grabbed Allen's shoulder. Okay, I'll tell you. I can vaguely sense the potential of the demon beast. Don't underestimate Ryan. His potential is the highest I've seen here. He is likely to grow into a formal wizard level. Albert said proudly. Formal wizard, that's indeed worth it. But how long will it take you? 10 or 20 years? Allen reminded. I don't know, but Ryan is a mutant. It should be faster. Albert scratched his scalp in distress. Okay, since the contract has been signed, keep it, but you have to work hard. If you don't reach the level of a senior wizard apprentice in 5 years, you will be sent out of the academy. I don't want you to be kicked out after 3 years. Allen patted his shoulder. Allen didn't take the mutants seriously. To advance to the wizard level demon beast, a lot of resources are needed, and Albert was busy. I will work hard. I calculated that, although I can't compare with you, it is still no problem to reach the 3rd level wizard apprentice in 3 years. A bit nodded seriously. Okay, I have something else to do. Goodbye. Allen waved goodbye, took out the key, and opened the door. He waved again, and returned to the room. Without stopping, Allen went directly to the balcony. After a few days, seedlings had grown in the 3 flower pots on the balcony. Chip. Start scanning. Scan the growth of the 3 datura plants. Ding. The task has been established. Scanning begins. Scanning ends. Datura number 1. Cultivated in ordinary soil. Environment. No special environment. Current status. Seedling. Plant height 2.52 mm. Status. Healthy. Datura number 2. Cultivated in botanical garden soil. Environment. No special environment. Current status. Seedling. Plant height 2.53 mm. Status. Healthy. Datura number 3. Cultivated in botanical garden soil. Environment. High element concentration environment. Current status. Seedling. Plant height 2.55 mm. Status. Healthy. After comparing the 3 datura plants, Allen found that the changes were not obvious, but this should be, because the time was too short. Allen scanned the element concentration of the 3rd flower pot, and found that the element concentration had decreased by 0.01 thousandths. If Allen did not have a chip scan, he would not be able to sense this ratio at all. Allen sorted out the data, recorded it, loosened the soil for the 3 daturas, watered them, and left them alone. Plants need time to grow, and it seems that it will take some time for these plants to have obvious differences. Allen recorded the growth data of plants every day, and a week passed in a flash. When Allen came to the balcony again that day, the 3 daturas had obvious differences. After scanning with a chip, the data of the 3 daturas can be clearly obtained. Seedling number 1 cultivated with ordinary soil has now grown to 11.3 mm tall, while seedling number 2 cultivated in the botanical garden is larger than it, 12 mm taller. The largest one is the datura number 3, which has grown to 12.8 mm and looks to be growing well. After scanning with a chip, the concentration of elemental energy in the 3rd flower pot has been reduced by 1,000th compared to the first one. Allen re-extracted energy from the magic stone to replenish it. Chapter 39 Mandragora Flower Experiment 2 is recommended today. Please collect and recommend it. 2 weeks later, the changes in the 3 flower pots on the balcony were more obvious. The growth of the Mandragora flower in the ordinary soil of the number 1 test subject had stagnated. The botanical garden soil used by the number 2 test subject grew normally, and the number 3 test subject used the botanical garden soil to increase the element concentration and grew luxuriantly. After another week, the number 1 test subject began to wither, and the leaves turned yellow. The number 2 and number 3 test subjects were fine. 3 days later, the number 1 test subject withered and died. The number 2 test subject began to grow slowly, and the number 3 test subject grew normally. A month later, the number 2 test subject bore fruit, and the fruit was slightly smaller. The number 3 test subject bore fruit, and the fruit was full. Allen looked through the experimental data. For a magical plant like the Mandragora, it is difficult to survive in an ordinary environment. This is the simplest plant. If you want to grow a magical plant like the mole coffee, the conditions required are higher. It is feasible to use magic stones to increase the concentration of surrounding element for artificial cultivation, but one thing is that the cost will be very high. This time, only 1 Mandragora flower was cultivated, and the energy in the magic stone has been exhausted. The most practical way is to find a piece of land with a high enough concentration of element, but most of these places already have owners, and many of the unowned lands are in dangerous places with few people. There is also a way to grow magic plants without such a place. That is, the soil must be rich in energy. Allen tested the soil in the number 2 flower pot and found that the energy value has dropped a lot, but these soils were stolen from the botanical garden. It's not a big problem if it's less, but if it's less, it will be easily discovered. Allen knows the means of wizards very well. Although this is a white wizard, no one will care about experiments with thieves. There is no good way. Alan had to put it down first, open the door and go out. Quack. Alan, hello, can you give me some fried nuts? A crow fluttered its wings and landed on Alan's shoulder. Hello, Ryan, fried nuts, right? I'll bring a bag for you. Alan closed the door and said casually. At the moment of turning around, an idea suddenly flashed through Alan's mind. He grabbed Ryan with a somewhat excited expression, muttering to himself, carrion crow, datcher a flower, why didn't I think of that place? I wasted so much time, it's dark under the lamp. Quack. Alan. Let go quickly, I can't breathe. Are you going to murder this handsome bird? Crow Ryan shouted in horror. Oh. Sorry Ryan, I suddenly thought of something and accidentally hurt you. I'll let go now. Alan quickly let go of his hand and let Ryan fly again. Ahem, my bones are almost broken by you. You have to apologize and compensate. I want mental damages. I want physical damages. You hurt my fragile bird body. Ryan shouted while standing on the chandelier. Okay, I apologize. I'm sorry, I shouldn't grab the bird hard. No, I shouldn't grab you hard. I will compensate. You must compensate. Okay, what do you want me to compensate? Alan now thought of a solution and was in a good mood. At least 5 bags of roasted nuts. Crow Ryan said with a turn of his eyes. Okay, I'll remember 5 bags of roasted nuts. I'll bring them to you when I come back. Alan locked the door and prepared to leave. No, 5 bags are too little. I've been hurt so badly. I can't do it anymore. I'm going to die. Albert, I think I'll never see you again. See you in the next life. Seeing Alan's promise, Crow Ryan felt that it was too little. He pretended to be dead and fell from the chandelier. The whole bird pair was on the ground, wailing and peeking with eyes open. Okay, add 2 more bags. Alan shook his head and looked at the crow on the ground. Ouch, my sternum seems to be broken. I can't breathe. I can't do it anymore. I'm going to die. Crow Ryan was still performing. The meat of crows is delicious. Use the feathers of the crows that have just died. Remove the internal organs. Coat them with egg whites. Dip them in breadcrumbs. Heat the oil to 70%. Fry them until golden, and take them out. They are fragrant and crispy. The shadow leopards in the dormitory next door are crying with greed. Alan said leisurely. The crow Ryan, who was pretending to be dead on the ground, jumped up instantly, turned his head, and saw a black and purple fluffy head emerging from another dormitory, and instantly flew to the chandelier. The fluffy head, with green eyes, licked its front paws with its barbed tongue, and retracted its head when it saw the crow flying to the chandelier. Quack. The bird is scared to death. A wing stroked the iron chain of the chandelier and chirped. Okay, I'm leaving. I'll bring you your fried nuts. Ilu smiled slightly and walked towards the stairs. Remember, it's 10 bags. 10 bags of fried nuts. The crow Ryan shouted from a distance behind him. Alan waved his hand to show that he understood and walked out of the dormitory. When he saw the crow just now, Alan remembered that when he first patrolled in the Black Forest, he encountered a place where many demonized plants grew. At that time, everyone was only concerned with obtaining soul-eating honey and did not touch those demonized plants. Now it seems that it should be a good place. Recalling that the area was not very large, the concentration of element in the air was not scanned at that time, but there was no rune array blocking that place, so the concentration of element should not be much different, because if the element are not interfered with, they will slowly spread to the surroundings, and the concentration of element in the Black Forest is slightly lower than that of the Academy. But so many demonized plants can grow there, which is a very strange thing. Looking at the time, it was a little late, and there was no time to catch up, so Alan had to go tomorrow. It was very convenient for the patrol team to go outside the academy. Alan took a collection task and prepared to collect outside the academy to cover the purpose of the action. That area is about a day's journey from the academy, but the patrolling speed is not fast. It should take less than a day for me to go there alone this time. I also need to pay attention to whether there are any curious people following me. It takes more than 2 days to go back and forth, and I have to spend time to study the reasons why the magic plants can grow there, at least 1 day, so it will take 4 days. Allen calculated in his mind and began to buy supplies. At the same time, he sold the potions he had made during this period. Because he had not accepted any tasks during this period, it was expensive to buy experimental materials. Allen started to make secondary potions in exchange for magic stones. After purchasing supplies for half a month and buying a dimensional bag, Allen left the trading area and came to the restaurant. He ordered a hearty dinner. Allen was already familiar with the halfling chef here. He bought a lot of food that could be eaten after eating. Allen took a few bags of roasted nuts and walked towards the dormitory. Chapter 40 Guano Stone. Please collect. Please recommend. The afternoon sun was a little warm. Allen appeared on the path outside the academy. This was the direction to the Black Forest. He walked carefully all the way and made several circles. Allen made sure that no one was following him before he came here. After walking for more than an hour, the wooden house at the rest point appeared in the woods from afar. It was no different from the previous patrol, but this time he was alone. Without stopping, Allen continued to walk towards the Black Forest. The chip was always scanning, and a lot of information was fed back. After screening, it appeared on the retina. Sure enough, the concentration of element here is 0.4%, which is not as good as the academy. It seems that there is something wrong with that piece of land. Allen walked to several places in the Black Forest, and the scanned values did not change. Then he randomly shoveled a few shovels of soil and began to analyze it. The result was that the soil was just more fertile, but it was far inferior to the soil in the botanical garden. Then he continued to walk towards the target. The breeze blew, and the leaves rustled. Because the scavenging crows had been cleared, the Black Forest was much quieter now. With the sword in his hand, Allen split the bushes in front of him and walked to the place where he was a few months ago. If it weren't for the chip to guide the direction, Allen felt that it would not be so easy to find this time, because the weeds and bushes in the wild area had grown wildly for several months, and all the traces had been covered up long ago. The location recorded in the chip was finally found. There were not many bushes in this area. Not far to the left was the hive of bloodthirsty bees, but it was abandoned now. Chip. Scan the surrounding environment. Ding. The task has been established, and the scan has begun. Ding. The scan is complete. A total of 8 kinds of magic plants were found, with a total of 37 plants, including 4 screaming banshees, 3 bloody marys, 13 mandrakes, and 2 carnivorous plants. The concentration of element in the air is 0.4 parts per thousand. Sure enough, the elemental energy in the air here is the same as the surrounding area. The reason why so many magic plants can grow here is the soil. After bypassing several highly dangerous magic plants, Allen came to the open space and took out a small shovel to dig a shovel of soil. Chip. Scan and analyze the soil. Ding. The task has been established. Start scanning. While the chip was analyzing, Allen began to observe the surrounding environment. There was nothing strange around, but there were many abandoned bird nests on the branches. Allen jumped to the top of the tree. The bird nests were empty and there were no birds around. Not far away, a scavenging crow landed near the bloodthirsty vine. The vines of the bloodthirsty vine were like poisonous snakes, slowly climbing up the branches and approaching the scavenging crow little by little. Suddenly, the vines suddenly grew longer and tied the scavenging crow tightly in an instant. The barbs on the vines directly pierced the feathers of the scavenging crow. The scavenging crow struggled violently, but it was useless. The vines tightly strangled the scavenging crow and continuously injected toxins. After a while, the scavenging crow's struggle became weaker and weaker, and finally stopped moving. The brown vine pulled its prey and slowly returned to the roots of the bloodthirsty vine. It exerted a little force, and the body of the scavenging crow seemed to be squeezed, and a lot of blood flowed out. In the end, the scavenging crows were left with only feathers. The toxin of the blood-sucking vine is very strong, which can paralyze and poison animals to death. Then a digestive fluid is injected to dissolve the internal organs, flesh, bones, and blood into blood water, which is poured to the roots of the tree, so that a lot of nutrients are harvested. This plant is very greedy. Even if it is full, it will continue to hunt and store the captured food. Looking at the size of the blood-sucking vine, Allen estimated that the food consumed by it to grow so big would be hundreds of scavenging crows. It seems that the bird's nest nearby was made by this blood-sucking vine. When I came to the side of the blood-sucking vine, I noticed someone approaching. The vines of the blood-sucking vine began to wander along the ground. When the breath of Wizard Allen Jiang was released, the blood-sucking vine was like a mouse seeing a cat, pretending to be dead. This plant is quite smart. The vines began to shrivel and turn yellow. The whole demonized plant quickly shriveled, and finally turned into a yellow grass, as if it would dissipate with the wind. Allen knew very well that this demonized plant was not dead, but transported all the nutrients to the roots of the tree. The roots will be about 1 meter underground, and they are shaped like a basketball-sized bulb. As long as the bulb is not damaged, the bloodthirsty vine can grow again with these nutrients. Allen exerted force on his hands and dug out the bulb in a short while. The bulb is reddish brown and has a tough skin. This thing can be used to make feed. Magic beasts like to eat it. Of course, humans can eat it, but it tastes bad. On the ground around, Allen found a lot of feathers of carrion crows. It seems that this magic plant needs to eat a lot of meat. So many bad nests nearby should be its masterpiece. Ding. Chip analysis is complete. At this time, the chip prompt sounded in his mind. Allen stopped looking at the bloodthirsty vine and checked it. Compared with the botanical garden, the soil here has far more minerals and energy. Allen was delighted. Sure enough, the soil here is different. Then there was a line of words at the end of the soil test. There are granular guano stones in the soil. He touched the soil with his right hand, and a layer of fine whitish crystal particles appeared on his fingers. Not only was there in the surrounding soil, but more guano stones appeared in a hardened state. Chip. Scan the composition of guano. Ding. The task has been established, and the scan has begun. The scan has ended. Ding. In addition to the known minerals such as nitrogen and phosphorus, it contains a large amount of elemental energy. After calculation, it contains a large amount of ingredients required for the growth of magical plants. Only then did Allen realize that the reason why so many magical plants can grow here is because of the existence of guano. These guano stones are excellent fertilizers. Magical plants are also plants, and they must also need fertilizers. However, these guano stones are not simple. The feces of ordinary birds do not have this kind of energy. They should be from magical species, and the most common here are scavenging crows. Although the scavenging crows are weak, they are compared with wizards at that time. Ordinary scavenging crows are already comparable to intermediate knight apprentices. Allen thought about it, cast the invisibility spell, and prepared to go to the scavenging crow's nests deep in the Black Forest to check. Where there are many scavenging crows, there should be more guano stones. After casting the invisibility spell, Allen's figure became looming, especially in the dimly lit Black Forest. It was even more difficult to find. Even the smell was covered by a kind of powder by Allen, and then he cast a light as a swallow, and his footsteps were light, making it even harder to detect the traces on the ground. There are many carrion crows in the depths of the Black Forest. It is not fun to be discovered by hundreds of them. Although I'm sure I can rush out, it is not easy to get in again. Chapter 41 Giant Tree. Please collect. Please recommend. The light was dim in the depths of the Black Forest. Allen looked up at the sky. Under the cover of many dense forests, the light spots were no longer dazzling, and the sun could be vaguely seen. There were bushes in the surrounding woods, but the light was not sufficient. There were only shade-loving plants. The number of carrion crows began to increase. Allen used a chip to scan the surrounding environment. There were many medicinal herbs here, most of which were ordinary medicinal herbs, and had little effect on wizards. There were many other animals in the woods, with wild boars being the most numerous. There were also a few black magic wolves, which were all casually sent away, and did not cause any impact. Unknowingly, they came to the depths of the trees. Roar. A loud roar suddenly came from the woods not far away. The trees fell down, and a wild boar rushed out. Then a giant tiger with red hair and black stripes jumped out. The giant tiger was 3 meters long, and threw the wild boar to the ground. There was blood in its claws and huge mouth. Flame Tiger, secondary demon beast. Allen recognized it at a glance. This kind of magic beast has the strength of a great knight. If you are careful, you can deal with it. Besides, the flame tiger didn't notice Allen at the moment, so a sneak attack would be more likely. The fur of the flame tiger is a good carrier for spell scrolls, and the elemental energy in its flesh and blood is rich. After being cooked by a master, it will be very beneficial. Allen decided to take it down in an instant. He slowly drew out the cross sword, added a secondary force field protection to his body, and slowly approached the giant tiger. When he got close, he pointed with his left hand, stunned the flame tiger, which was gnawing on the wild boar, stiffened and then swayed. Allen seized the opportunity and jumped up in an instant, slashing down with the cross sword in his hand. This move is a very common skill of knights, usually used on war horses, but Allen's move is not weak at all. The flame tiger finally woke up at the critical moment and only had time to turn his head and was slashed at the shoulder of his forelimb. Roar! A scream made the flame tiger look bloody and fleshy. The cross sword cut the bone, but did not cut it off. The flame tiger was fierce and thick-skinned. Although his forelimbs were not very flexible, he still pounced on him. Allen dodged. Just when he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the chip prompted. Sword vertical chop from the right back. Allen didn't even think about it, and chopped it down with his sword. Sizzle. The clothes on Allen's right back burst, and turned into flying strips of cloth. Just now, it was the tiger tail of the flame tiger that was like a steel whip. Although it blocked it, its tail was still whipped when it was bent. However, it was already the last gasp of a strongbow, and it only made Allen feel a little pain. Roar. Seeing that Allen didn't suffer much damage, the flame tiger turned around and ran away with its tail between its legs. However, it was injured by a chop just now, and its movement was greatly affected. If it fought with Allen, it might take some time. This guy turned around and ran, but it was a dead end. Another stun spell. The flame tiger didn't run a few steps, and it fell to the ground like a drunk strong man. Allen didn't hesitate, and stabbed its heart directly along its abdomen with a sword. Black and red blood flowed out. Allen took out the dimensional bag, and put the corpse of the giant tiger directly into the dimensional bag with the hand of a wizard. If I hadn't bought a dimensional bag yesterday, there would be no place to put it. The space of this dimensional bag is too small. It's only about 5 cubic meters at most. There are advanced dimensional bags, but they are only sold to formal wizards. These people don't even want to make money. Allen was a little helpless when he saw that the dimensional bag was already half full. After putting the flame tiger in the bag, Allen continued to move forward. The movement just now was quite loud, and it had scared away the surrounding animals. Allen was very fast. This area should be the hunting area of the flame tiger. Since entering, no other beasts have been found. Allen has passed by several gathering points of scavenging crows, but there may not be too many of them, and there are only a few guano stones. After walking for a while, a big tree appeared in front of him. Compared with the surrounding trees that were only 7 or 8 meters high, this tree was at least 30 or 40 meters high. The trunk was thick and the diameter was also 3 meters. The tree was full of bad nests, and half-meter long scavenger crows stood on the branches, dark and oppressive. At the top of the tree, there was a huge bird nest. A crow that was twice the size of the surrounding scavenger crows stood there, looking very majestic, like a king inspecting his territory. There were dozens of them patrolling in the air. Allen calculated that there were at least 1,000 scavenger crows gathered here, which was half of their population. After scanning with a chip, the largest scavenger crow was already at the level of a great knight. In addition, it could fly, so it was much more difficult to deal with than the flame tiger. Under the tree, there was a small lake. The lake water was as green as jade, and there was a circle of white sand around it. Allen approached carefully, and when he got close, he immediately smelled a sour smell, and there was no grass around. This whole beach is made of guano stones. Allen looked at the beach not far away in a daze, muttering to himself. Looking at the tree full of scavenging crows, the farther they look, the more they look pleasing to the eye. Quietly retreating to the shadows, Allen quietly waited for the night to fall. The guano stone was too close to the crow's nest. If he approached now, he would be easily discovered even with the cover of the concealment spell. After all, the secondary spell was a castrated version. If a formal wizard cast the invisibility spell, he could walk over openly, and these scavenging crows would not be able to find him. As for a strong attack, Allen had no such plan. Such a group of natural fertilizer producers could not die. If too many died, it would affect the fertilizer output. The sky gradually darkened, and the light in the black forest became darker. The crows on the branches of the big trees began to return to their nests, and the croaking of birds began to decrease. Gradually, the sky had completely darkened. Except for a few birds occasionally coming from the big trees, the forest was silent, and nocturnal creatures began to appear gradually. Time passed by minute, and even the vigilant scavenging crows were no longer silent. Allen slowly stood up, stretched his body, and approached the beach lightly. Fortunately, no one saw it here, and there were no reporters here, otherwise it would be reported tomorrow morning. Shock. Squatting late at night, the dung thief was so cruel, and the dung of the scavenging crows was stolen. Is it a moral lunsang or a twisted mind? Allen shook his head, and threw these thoughts away completely. Then he came to the edge of the beach. The guano stone was white or translucent granular, and the lower layer of accumulation had already become hardened. Allen took out a shovel, took out a cloth bag, squatted down and started collecting. Because he was afraid that the noise would be too loud and be discovered by the vigilant scavenging crows, Allen also manipulated the wind element to form a barrier, which had no protective power and the only effect was to block the sound. Everything was ready, and Allen rolled up his sleeves and prepared to work, digging dung. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Alfred. It was late at night, with two moons, one large and one small, hanging in the sky. Under a huge tree deep in the black forest, a dark shadow was constantly digging something. After putting more than a dozen bags of guano into the dimensional bag, Allen manipulated the magician's hand to make the beach smooth again. He slowly left the tree and retreated into the forest. His fingers flashed with light and a cleaning spell was released. He removed the dust from the guano he had just dug. This time, he was not well prepared. Both dimensional bags were full. There was no place to store them, so Allen had to leave. The black forest was full of fighting at night. Although Allen was not afraid of these beasts, he did not want to get too entangled. At night, there were no roads in the forest, and it was even more difficult to walk. Although there was a chip scan, the visibility was too low. Allen walked out of the black forest and came to a safe stronghold. He planned to rest here and return to the academy when it was dawn. He set up a defensive formation and lit a bonfire. Allen did not take out his sleeping bag, but sat cross-legged on the ground, put on a meditation posture, and began to close his eyes and rest. It is not safe to be alone in the wild. Allen didn't plan to sleep. Time passed by minute. As soon as the sky was slightly bright, he ate some dry food and set off. Restaurant kitchen. Alfred, come out quickly. I brought the best ingredients. This time you have to make a big meal for me. Allen came to the kitchen and shouted. Oh, dear Allen, what ingredients have you brought for me again? A halfling came out with a tall chef's hat. This time I brought good things. Help me make a big meal. Allen said proudly. Take out the ingredients first. Only when they meet the requirements. I won't help you if they don't meet the requirements. Alfred didn't agree at once. Okay, I will definitely not let you down this time, but are you sure you want to stay here? Allen didn't complain, just looked around and said, follow me. Alfred looked at Allen seriously and then said, following Alfred, we came to a warehouse outside. This is the cold storage room of the restaurant. It is a small cold storage, covering thousands of square meters. A freezing array is engraved with runes here, so the temperature inside is very low after opening it, and frozen ingredients are everywhere. Push open a small door next to it, and there is a stone platform inside. Put it here. Alfred pointed to the stone platform and said, okay, you stand back a little. Allen came to the stone platform and controlled the magician's hand, took out the 4-meter long flame tiger and put it on the stone platform. Demon beast, flame tiger, not bad, just died not long ago. Did you catch this? The halfling chef said after walking around. Of course, this kind of demon beast with good meat quality is rare. Allen said with a smile. The meat of many demon beasts has become very strange, and there are not many that can be eaten. Most of them are still artificially cultivated, such as blackhorn sheep. This kind of demon beast is not much different from ordinary wild beasts. Okay, you can sell this kind of food. I will make you a big meal, but I will charge you 1/3 of the food as a fee. Alfred nodded. I understand. Just put it here. Let me know when it's done. Seeing him agree, Allen prepared to leave. 2 days will do. By the way, do you still have amethyst honey? If you do, give me another bottle. I need it to process the food. There's only one bottle left. Here you go. Allen took out the amethyst honey and handed it to the halfling chef. Yes, it's produced in the botanical garden. By the way, the food this time is very large. You can't finish the dishes made by yourself. You can bring a few friends. Alfred opened the bottle cap and smelled the honey and said, I see. Goodbye. After that, Allen walked out of the storage room and out of the restaurant. Arriving at the botanical garden, Allen came here to find Lilith. As a direct disciple of the botanical garden's mentor Jaina, she has a lot of magic seeds in her hands, even the seeds of Moorish coffee. Allen is going to buy some. Allen has been in and out of the botanical garden many times, and his temporary pass has not expired. It was easy to pass the verification and enter. The botanical garden is very large. Allen walked to the tree houses with ease. All the apprentices of the botanical garden lived here. In front of the tree house was a quiet flower field. Several girls in apprentice robes were busy in the field. Lilith. Allen called out from afar when he saw the figure in the flower field. The girl turned around and gathered the hair by her ears with her fingers. Seeing Allen standing not far away, she said with some surprise, Hello, Allen. Lilith, are you free? I need to trouble you with something. Allen walked to the edge of the flower field and said, Okay, wait a moment. Lilith smiled slightly and greeted the other girls. Several female apprentices whispered mysteriously, turning their heads to look at Allen from time to time, and finally pushed Lilith out. Go quickly, we will take care of the rest. Don't let your male teammates wait impatiently, otherwise we will be guilty. After saying that, he pushed her out with a smile, and the words male teammates were particularly strong. Sorry, they just like to mess around. Lilith said a little embarrassed. It's okay, do you need to wash up? Allen smiled and pointed at Lilith's clothes. Oh, sorry, wait a moment, I'll be back soon. The girl looked a little embarrassed, said hello and ran back to the tree house like a rabbit. Allen followed behind slowly and waited outside the tree house for a while. Lilith, wearing a grey wizard robe, came out. However, the white wizard robe was tied with a pink ribbon at the waist with a bow, which instantly made the originally rustic and ugly wizard robe look youthful and naughty. The plump chest also outlined an arc, revealing the tall figure. Allen kept you waiting for a long time. Lilith said very ladylike. It's okay, it should be said that I disturbed you. Allen said gently. By the way, I have something to ask you. Come with me. Lilith waved her hand, motioning Allen to follow. They walked to several tree houses and stopped at a slightly larger one. This is our activity room. Usually there are not many people here. Let's talk here. Lilith turned her head and said, Okay. The activity room was not big. There were a few tables and stools inside. It was a bit empty. On the table was a deck of tarot cards. This was a prop in the wizarding world. It was first invented by the astrology school, but later, some bored wizard invented a board game with this deck of cards. This kind of tarot cards instantly became popular in the wizarding world. Later, it even became popular among the nobles. You have to know that not all wizards are old-fashioned research maniacs. They also need to rest and have fun. Chapter 43 Demonic Seed. After Allen sat down, Lilith took the teapot and filled a pot of spring water at the back of the activity room. The fire element in her hand gathered instantly, and the tea was brewed in a blink of an eye. This is the tea made from kingling flower. It's very good. Come and try it. Lilith picked up the teapot and poured a cup of water. She poured a cup for Allen. The crystal cup was very transparent. In the light green tea, there were a few dried purple flowers floating up and down in the water. A fragrance with a slightly sweet taste filled the whole room. I took a sip. The fragrance of the tea was accompanied by a hint of sweetness. After drinking it, I felt lazy. This kindling flower can relieve fatigue. Every time we finish exercising or working, we will make a cup. Seeing Allen's lazy look, Lilith smiled and said, "Very good stuff. Thank you very much." Allen opened his eyes and thanked. "This thing is not expensive. If you like it, you can take some away." Lilith squinted and smiled. "Then I'm welcome." Allen smiled. "I came to you for two things this time." Allen put down the teacup and said, "What do you need my help with?" Lilith sat up straight and said, "First of all, I got some top quality ingredients and asked Alfrin to make a feast for you. I want to invite you and the other members of the patrol team to dine together." Allen looked at Lilith with a smile. "Wow, you actually asked Alfrin to make a feast for you. What ingredients did you get?" Lilith looked curious. "A whole flaming tiger." Allen pretended to be calm and took a sip of tea. "Allen, you are simply a lucky star. The last time you ate, didn't the food taste good?" Allen interrupted Lilith's words. Lilith reacted immediately and continued, "I didn't eat much last time. I will definitely not miss it this time." Then she picked up the tea and said, "What's the other thing?" Lilith continued to ask. "The other thing is that I want to buy some magic seeds from you, including magic food such as Moorish coffee." Allen said seriously, "Aaron, are you going to plant these magical plants?" Although I don't know where your confidence comes from, as a friend, I still want to remind you that the environment requirements for the growth of magical plants are very strict. At present, in addition to the botanical garden, the ecological gardens of the formal wizards in the academy have them planted. You want to plant magical plants, which is very difficult. Although the seeds of most magical plants are not expensive, some magical plants are used only for seeds, and the price is not low. You'd better think carefully. When Lilith heard that Allen wanted to buy magical plants, she immediately realized his purpose. The main reason is that too many wizard apprentices want to earn magic stones by planting magical plants, but they all failed without exception. Those who succeeded also joined the botanical garden. There is a small open space of 10 square meters in the botanical garden, which can plant some magical plants with low requirements. Thank you for your reminder, Lilith. But I still want to give it a try. I have made a lot of preparations, even the preparations for failure in the end. Wizards often need to verify it by hand, so I still want to try it. Allen looked at Lilith very seriously. "Okay, how much do you want?" Lilith looked at Allen deeply and nodded. "Each type needs 10 seeds." "Okay, wait a moment, I'll get them for you." Lilith put down the crystal cup and stood up. She opened the door to the lounge. Ouch. With a cry, 3 or 4 girls huddled together and fell to the ground. Then they hurriedly got up and said, "Sorry to bother you, you continue." After saying that, they turned around and ran away. Lilith looked at her friends expressionlessly, then smiled awkwardly at Allen and slammed the door shut. What a shame. The moment the door closed, Lilith went crazy. Then she took a few deep breaths and regained her expression and walked towards the dormitory. Allen couldn't help laughing when he saw the door closed. "Here are the seeds you want." Lilith put an exquisite cloth bag on the table. "There are 37 kinds of seeds of magic plants in it. These are all the types I have. If you want more, you need to buy them from your instructor. However, those are only used by formal wizards and are expensive. I don't recommend you to do this. These should be enough for your experiment," Lilith said expressionlessly. But Allen stared at her and found that the blush on her face had not completely subsided. It was not polite to stare at others for a long time, so Allen quickly shifted his gaze and looked at the bag. Lilith was obviously relieved after her gaze shifted. She opened the bag and took a quick look. "I want all of these. How many magic stones are there in total?" Allen looked up and asked. "Just give me 30. Lilith thought for a while and said, "Thank you." Allen knew that it was not easy to collect so many seeds of magic plants. If he went to buy these seeds by himself, he would not be able to get them without 37 or 8 magic stones. Knowing Lilith's kindness, Allen did not refuse. "These 30 magic stones, count them." Allen took out the magic stones and put them on the table. "Okay, no need to count." Lilith waved her hand casually and said, "Well, if there is nothing else, I will leave first." After all, I'm not an apprentice of the botanical garden, and the temporary certificate has too many restrictions. Allen stood up and said goodbye. Well, be careful, I will see you off. Lilith also stood up. Okay, just send it here. Lilith, I still have to invite a few other people, so I won't bother you anymore. Don't be late for the lunch the day after tomorrow. Goodbye. Allen said while standing on the road not far from the treehouse. Okay, I will definitely be there for the lunch the day after tomorrow. Alfrin's magic cuisine is a delicacy that cannot be missed. Be careful on the road. A gust of wind blew by, and Lilith gathered a few strands of hair that were blown by the wind, and waved to Allen. Allen waved his hand, and turned to leave. Without stopping, while there was still time, Allen first notified Ruth, and then went to the dormitory of another combat wizard to find the team leader Arthur, and tell him that he was invited to the lunch later. Then he went to Gray without stopping. After spending an hour notifying everyone, Allen returned to the dormitory. He came to Albert's door next door and knocked. The door opened quickly. Albert, how have you been recently? Allen said with a smile. It's you, Allen. You have been breeding magical beasts during this period. A batch of female beasts have just become pregnant, so you are a little busy. Albert yawned. Are you free the day after tomorrow? I have a food party the day after tomorrow at noon. Food party. Rest assured I will definitely attend. Albert instantly perked up when he heard about the food party. Then it's settled. Quack. Hello, Allen. The crow Ryan also came out. Hello, Ryan. Allen casually greeted him and said, then it's settled. Just go to restaurant area B the day after tomorrow. After saying that, he waved his hand and walked into his room. Chapter 44 Feast 1. Allen, are you there? 2 days later at noon, Allen was cleaning the flower pots in the house, preparing to continue the experiment of planting magic plants. Hearing a knock on the door, Allen rubbed his nose and stood up. Albert, hello, it's already noon. Allen only realized at this time that the time had come. It's already noon. The big meal is about to start. Let's go quickly. Albert said impatiently as soon as he came in. Okay, let me tidy up my clothes. It will be ready soon. Allen tidied up his robes quickly, walked out of the dormitory, and locked the door casually. Let's go. I drool when I think of the big meal made by Mr. Alfrin himself. Albert pulled Allen and walked quickly. Okay, Albert, don't worry, this big meal will not be missing your share. Allen was somewhat helpless and was carried forward by Albert. Isn't your crow going? Allen asked in a bit of surprise. No, I left him in the dormitory. Albert carried Allen to the restaurant. In the B area of the restaurant, Arthur and his friends have already arrived. They are sitting in a private room chatting and laughing. Allen pushed the door and walked in with Albert. Everyone came early. Everyone is here. The feast made by Master Alfrin is worth looking forward to. Arthur stood up to greet them. Captain, you should have eaten it a few times. Allen asked with some surprise. High quality ingredients are too difficult to find. I have only eaten it twice. Arthur shrugged and said. Okay, don't be polite anymore. Allen, you invited us to a feast, not to chat. Lilith said with a smile. Okay, wait a moment. I'll talk to Alfrin, and the feast will be served soon. Allen said fluently. After speaking, he gestured to everyone and went directly to the back kitchen of the restaurant. Albert sat down in a seat impatiently. Several people didn't want to continue talking. Gray and Arthur sat at the long table, looking very calm, but their anxious eyes revealed everything. Lilith and Ruth were talking in a whisper, but judging from their expressions as they glanced at the door from time to time, the sisters were not so calm. After a while, a crisp bell rang. Allen and Alfrin came over with a dining cart. The dining cart was covered with silver lids, and no smell came out. Seeing the dining cart coming, the wizard apprentices immediately posed, and each of them looked like a prince and princess attending a banquet. As Allen sat back in his seat, Alfrin said, the number of people has expired, so let's start the banquet. Ding ding ding, the halfling rang the bell. Everyone was ready. Alfrin manipulated the wizard's hand to put the plates one by one, and finally placed the largest silver plate with a diameter of half a meter in the middle of the dining table. Then he gently tapped the plate with a silver knife, and a spell light flashed. In the blink of an eye, all the silver lids disappeared instantly. The table was covered with a variety of sumptuous delicacies. A strong aroma instantly filled the room, tempting everyone's appetite. In the middle was the flame tiger, which had been placed in a crouching tiger position and was steamed. After this demonized beast was made into food, Allen could even feel the elemental energy in it. Alfred locked the elemental energy of the demonized beast into the meat during the cooking process. These substances not only enhance the taste of the food, but are also very beneficial to the people who eat it. The dessert was cream and fruit, with a layer of amethyst honey poured on it. The drinks were crystal juice and wine, provided by Lilith and Ruth, which were extremely rich. Not only did the others Adam's apples move, but even Allen looked impatient. "Let's get started." Allen couldn't help it either, and said loudly, then took the lead, and stabbed a piece of charcoal grilled flame tiger tenderloin with a fork, and took it back. As soon as the voice fell, Albert took the lead with his fingers quickly, dancing to cut off a piece of charcoal grilled flame tiger leg, and then put some of the various foods on a large plate, and then put it back on the table with satisfaction and devoured it. In comparison, Lilith and Ruth were much more elegant. With a flick of the hand, a piece of steamed tiger meat flew over under the control of the mage's hand, and then it was coated with seasonings and honey. With a small mouth, she took a bite and closed her eyes slightly, enjoying the taste. Ruth also flicked the knife lightly, cut a piece of braised tiger steak with the mage's hand, and then cut it into small pieces on the plate in front of her with a small knife. She spread jam and honey on it, and tasted it with enjoyment. Allen took a bite, and felt a strange fragrance as soon as the grilled tiger tenderloin entered his mouth. With a slight pressure of the tongue, the meat was full of juice. The fire element in the tiger meat was also released in the mouth, and the whole taste buds were instantly like burning, but it was instantly fragrant and smooth. The elastic and smooth tiger tenderloin, the unique taste of the secret spices, the sweetness of the amethyst honey, all kinds of flavors are integrated, but do not interfere with each other, and instantly burst out in the mouth. While everyone was enjoying the feast, Alfred closed the door and left the room. Although Allen had eaten all kinds of delicacies in his previous life, compared to this, he felt that he had lived 2 lives in vain. The fork in his hand did not stop, and he ate the large piece of charcoal grilled tiger tenderloin in a few bites. This tiger weighed 800 kilograms. Excluding the internal organs and fur, there were at least 400 kilograms. 1/3 of it was Alfred's reward, which had been removed. The remaining weight was nearly 300 kilograms. It was impossible for everyone to eat it all. There was no fight among the people, but no one spoke. Everyone wished that there were more mouths and hands. Allen ate a few pieces of tiger meat, and then took out a glass of crystal juice drink. This fruit is a diamond-shaped fruit without a core. The color is mostly translucent, looks like crystal, and the fruit is elastic. It is a fruit produced here in the Five Rings Tower, and is very popular. It tastes refreshing, and the flesh inside is like jelly. After a big gulp, I feel refreshed all over. At this time, Allen felt a warm current flowing from his stomach along his limbs to all parts of his body. His heartbeat became more steady and powerful, his blood flowed faster, and his face flushed slightly. Lilith, Ruth and other people around him also had red faces, sweat all over their bodies, and white mist floated on their hair. Ding. A large amount of beneficial substances have been detected in the body. The body is absorbing it, and the physical fitness is slowly improving. Ding. A large amount of beneficial energy has been detected in the body. The body is absorbing it, and the strength is slowly improving. Allen was overjoyed and tried to experience the changes in his body. However, there was a noise outside the door at this time. Allen frowned slightly and ignored it. P.S. The author's dream of supporting remote rural areas and older single young men starts with a recommendation vote. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 45 Feast 2. But after a while, the sound did not weaken at all, and even became louder. Bang, a muffled sound came from the corridor. Allen opened his eyes, looked at the door, and then continued to enjoy the Yanhu feast. Just as he was about to continue, the door of the room opened with a bang. Everyone was slightly stunned, and saw a waiter in white fell to the ground and kept wailing. The waiters here are slaves purchased from the human world outside. They will be free after working here for 5 years and then leave, so they are all ordinary people. I'm here to entertain guests today, and you actually told me that there are no top quality ingredients. A sharp voice sounded outside the door, and Allen frowned. The voice was as annoying as a duck's voice. As soon as the voice fell, a figure walked in. This person was thin, with fiery red hair, pale skin, some arrogance between his eyebrows, hooked nose, thin lips, and looked mean and vicious. Seeing that the people in the private room did not react, they were just startled when they smelled the fragrance in the air. This is what you said about not having top quality ingredients. Then what is this? He pointed at the food on the table of Allen and others, and said to the white-clothed waiter on the ground, "I'm the legitimate son of the Wilson family. If you don't give me an explanation today, I will tear down your place." He was ready to continue. "I don't care who you are. If you have a conflict with them, go and solve it. Now we are using this room." Allen stood up with a cold face and said coldly, "Allen, as the host, must stand up. Who are you? I will teach these lowly mortals a lesson. Do you want to stand out?" The wizard, who claimed to be from the Wilson family, looked at Allen. "It doesn't matter who I am, but if you don't leave quickly, you will be in big trouble." Allen pouted and said, "What trouble do I have? I'm a noble, pure-blood noble. He is just an ant, and how can you enjoy these things? But I can only choose those ordinary goods." The man looked at the food on the table and said proudly, "Owen, come out quickly." Before Allen spoke, a female voice shouted outside the door, "Excuse me, Wilson just came and doesn't know the rules here. I apologize to you on his behalf." A tall figure walked in. Allen didn't answer, but just glanced at Owen coldly. Then he looked at another person. The man had striking red hair, delicate features, and was 1.7 meters tall. His ears were different from those of ordinary people, a bit like the pointed ears of elves, and his bright eyes were like emeralds. He came in and apologized. "It's you." Before Allen could speak, Albert next to him suddenly stood up. "Do you know her?" Allen felt that this person was familiar, but no one came out for a while. Hearing Albert's voice, he was a little confused. The light of the academy, Payne Wilson, a half-elf wizard with a strong bloodline, will definitely be able to advance to a formal wizard, and is the dream lover of all normal male apprentices in the academy. Then he looked at Allen with a strange look. "Except you." Allen rolled his eyes and didn't care. He remembered that Allen had met this half-elf when he was a librarian, and he had a deep memory of him at that time. "Miss Payne, are you coming to eat too? We are here too. Would you like to join us?" Albert walked up to Payne with a shameless face and flattered her. "I'm sorry, classmate, I have something else to do. Sorry to bother you. I will personally treat you next time I have a chance." Then he grabbed Owen, who was about to say something, apologized again, and dragged him out by the collar. "Hey, don't pull my collar. I'll go. I haven't finished yet. Let me go. Don't think you are my sister." A voice faded away. At this time, the two white-clothed waiters who had been hiding far away came over and carried the waiter on the ground out. After a while, Alfred got the news and came over. "I'm sorry for letting an irrelevant person disturb you. I will report the situation to the security department of the college. That guy will be punished. No one dares to violate the regulations of the college." Alfred looked a little ugly. "This is not your problem, Mr. Alfred. Your cooking skills are the best I have ever seen. We are very satisfied with today's feast," Allen said to Alfred. To be honest, Allen did not expect that the food made by Magic Cuisine would be so delicious and could also increase attributes. Just now, Allen looked at the attributes, and his physical fitness and strength increased by 0.2 points respectively. After Alfred went out, everyone did not continue to eat because they were already full just now. Looking at the half of the food left on the table, everyone looked helpless. A table of delicious food. It's a pity that I was full. Everyone had to look at these delicacies with regret. Allen glanced at everyone and waved his hand and said, "Let's divide the rest and take them away." "Okay." Everyone answered in unison and then looked at each other and laughed. The food was distributed by Lilith and Ruth. Each kind of food was evenly distributed and then placed on the plate. A wind spell was cast to protect the food. After the distribution, everyone put the package into the dimensional bag, thanked Alfred and left the restaurant. Albert was discussing the half-elf Payne with Allen the whole way. "You know, Payne actually smiled at me and she actually invited me. Do you think I'm lucky to meet the light of the academy while having a meal? What should I wear to the appointment?" Albert chattered while pulling Allen. She invited us, not you. Allen glanced at him and said, if she invited us, wouldn't that include me? When the day comes, you can say you have something to do, and I'll go alone. Albert waved his hand and said indifferently, she didn't even tell me the time and place. Do you think she will invite you? She just politely refused you. Allen was annoyed by him, and directly pierced his thoughts. Impossible, she just forgot, because she was too tight on time. I will go to the classroom where she applied for the course tomorrow to wait for her. After she sees me, she will definitely tell me the time and place. You can wait for her, Albert said with expectation. You must be jealous. I'm more handsome than you, and pain like me but not you. You're jealous so you keep stopping me from pursuing happiness. When you said that, I thought you should use the mirror technique to observe your appearance carefully. I guess the mirror technique would collapse out of shame. Allen complained casually. Not to mention that he is half a head taller than Albert. Allen's body in this life is also very handsome. No one can wake up a person who is daydreaming. Allen complained about Albert who was distracted and pushed the door to enter the dormitory. Thank you all for your recommendation votes. Chapter 46 Feast 3. Back in the dormitory, Allen immediately began to assume the posture of the knight's breathing technique. The energy from the big meal he had just eaten had not been completely absorbed, and a lot of it was still accumulated in his body. Exercising at this time would allow him to better absorb the energy in his body, rather than accumulating it in his body and slowly dissipating it. At this time, the energy in Allen's body began to surge faster, and his blood was like a surging river. As the posture of the knight's breathing technique was performed step by step, the speed of his blood also changed. With each breath, he followed the rise and fall. The red dragon blood that was sleeping deep in his blood also had a slight movement. As the blood continued to accelerate, his heart beat more and more powerfully. If someone stood beside him at this time, they would clearly hear the sound of his heart beating boom, boom, boom. The blood in his body was like a rushing river, and all the pores in his body were opening and closing. The surrounding elemental energy directly entered his body through his skin. The food he had just eaten began to be digested quickly, and a large amount of energy was converted and then traveled through his body with the blood and was finally absorbed. As he moved, Allen was already immersed in his mind, and the power in his blood began to awaken little by little. The power of the red dragon's blood was extremely strong. This awakening of power began to change Allen's blood. If you take out his blood at this time, you will find that its temperature is far higher than that of a normal person. The blood is bright red, and there is a hint of golden light in it. The direct effect is that Allen's physical fitness began to improve significantly. When the blood is fully awakened this time, Allen will jump directly to a formal wizard. However, although the flame tiger feast he ate this time accelerated the awakening of the blood, it still takes several years for it to fully awaken. With the entry of elemental energy, Allen's blood, which was about to boil, slowly calmed down, all the pores in his body opened, and his mouth and nose breathing gradually stopped, entering a fetal breathing state. This state is like a baby before birth, and the blood begins to grow. The body is like a boiling pot, and the mercury-like blood transports a lot of energy to all parts of the body. All cells get a lot of nutrition in an instant, and the red dragon's blood begins to transform Allen's body. As the heart beats, the blood in the body washes over the body like a tide, forming a kind of shock. In this kind of shock, the whole body of bones is like a reborn. Allen's body bones and muscles are getting tighter and tighter. The bones creak, the muscles surge like waves, and finally gradually calm down. As the blood flow begins to slow down, the pores around the body gradually begin to close. The elemental energy no longer enters the body, and the speed of the red dragon blood awakening begins to slow down. However, at this time, Allen's physical fitness has been greatly improved. Allen slowly exhaled. The breath was hot, full of sulfur, and a few sparks came out with a breath, and then dimmed after a flash. This phenomenon is the innate skill of the red dragon blood. The first time the blood awakens, you will get the red dragon's breath. This skill consumes very little, but the power is not weak at all, but there is a limit to the number of times. As Allen slowly stood up, his breath calmed down, and he opened his eyes. A sense of majesty suddenly emerged from Allen's body, and then slowly disappeared. This is the dragon power that comes with the blood, but the level is very low, and basically it will not cause any impact. Only when Allen advances to the legendary level, the dragon power of his body will be greatly improved. Otherwise it will be a decoration. Chip. Scan my physical fitness. Ding. Scan completed. Name. Allen Farkus. Strength. 10.2. Agility. 10.1. Constitution. 11.1. Spirit. 8.2. Mana. 82. Healthy. Bloodline is beginning to awaken. Allen was very satisfied to see the leap forward development of his physical fitness. Now, his physical strength alone has reached the level of a great knight. However, after the action of his bloodline, the big meal he had eaten at noon had been completely digested. At this time, Allen felt extremely hungry. He did not care to continue observing the changes in his body and directly took out the packed food from the dimensional bag. Then he stuffed it into his mouth voraciously. Allen felt that his stomach was like a hole. He took a bite, chewed it casually, and swallowed it directly into his stomach. Even the bones inside were directly bitten and swallowed. The more than 10 pounds of flame tiger meat that he brought back was eaten by him in a short while. At this time, Allen felt that his stomach was filled. He washed the oil on his hands and made a cup of kingling tea. Allen looked at the sky and found that the sun had already set. This time, the awakening of blood did not take Allen much time. Now it seemed that a whole afternoon had passed. After eating the flame tiger feast again, Allen felt a warm feeling on his body. The fire element in the flame tiger meat could burn the impurities in the body and slightly cleanse the marrow and meridians. However, after Allen's blood awakening, the flame tiger meat was no longer effective, but it could quickly replenish the energy consumed by the body. Standing in front of the mirror, Allen found that he had grown several centimeters taller in an afternoon. The clothes on his body were a little tight. Fortunately, the clothes of wizards were relatively loose, so it was not very obvious. At this time, Allen's skin became very tough. He scratched it with a dinner knife, and only a red mark appeared on the skin. It was much weaker than ordinary leather armor, and the control of the fire element was easier. Allen found that his skin now had its own flame resistance. When he put his fingers into the flames, his fingers only felt hot but not burned. The awakening of blood consumed a lot of energy, and also consumed a lot of Allen's spirit. After a while, Allen felt a strong sense of sleepiness. He packed up his things, and didn't meditate anymore, and lay down to rest. The next day, when Allen woke up, it was almost noon. He stood up, and his body crackled like fried beans. He stretched his waist, and picked up the water cup on the table to drink water. He just used a little force with his fingers, and crushed the cup into several pieces. Allen was helpless. His strength suddenly surged. Allen couldn't control it. He washed carefully, changed into a bigger set of clothes, and went directly to the training ground. If you want to control your strength as soon as possible, the best way is to train a lot. The dormitory is too small to use it. The training ground is the best place. At this time, there were only a few wizard apprentices in the training ground. Allen took out the cross sword and started to practice. Unknowingly, Allen's speed became faster and faster. The cross sword in his hand drew a sword light. The whole training ground saw Allen's astonishing training. After practicing swordsmanship several times, Allen felt relaxed. After calming his breathing, he began to practice the knight's breathing method. Although the effect of the knight's breathing method is now minimal, it is very suitable for exercising control of strength. P.S. Thank you Huan Hail Ancient EK, Wenwu Leo Iu, Yunfeng, Wan Wenjabin, Ayao, Fantasy Cheyenne Iron, Sable Star, ZUIE, Rufeng 241, Giai, Sun 1127, Yingxiang, Shanjian Zian Along, Ghost Apostle, Dateching, Stepping on Jian Kanglan, Yingtinki, Baby Fish, 10 years of earning, 7383, Kazafoi. I have been waiting for the recommendation votes of book friends in the book shortage. Fuming thanks you here. Thank you Huan Hail Ancient EK, Wenwu Leo Iu, Yunfeng, Wan Wenjabin, Ayao, Fantasy Cheyenne Iron, Sable Star, ZUIE, Rufeng 241, Giai, Sun 1127, Yingxiang, Shanjian Zian Along, Gishan Shichu, Dateching, Taijian Kanglan, Yingtinki, Baby Fish, Shi Nian Huang Debo Crossing Ming, 7383, Kazafi, I have been waiting for the recommendation. Votes of book friends in the book shortage. Fu Meng would like to thank you. Chapter 47 Secret Realm. At night, the silver moon shines on the earth. There are two moons in the wizard's world. One is the silver moon and the other is a blue moon. According to the legend of the indigenous elves in this world, the silver moon is called Ashura and the blue moon is called Cynthia. They are the two daughters of the god of creation, and the two moons are their palaces. The moon also represents themselves. The two moons appear alternately in the night sky, and every once in a while, there will be a scene of two moons intersecting. The silver moon represents fate, and the blue moon represents magic. However, according to the research of ancient wizards, both moons can trigger elemental power. As for the palace above, some legendary wizards have reached it, but they did not find it. As for the gods, only some natural spirits worshipped by the indigenous people have been found in this world. They are not even demigods, and at best they can barely be regarded as legends. During the pioneering period, they were captured by wizards as experimental materials. Even if they have escaped, they dare not show up now. This time, two moons appeared at the same time. Like other times, many wizards would choose to meditate every night of this day, because the double moon would trigger an elemental fluctuation, which would double the activity of the element. For meditation, one day would be equivalent to 10 days in the past. Allen would not miss this time either. As his meditation deepened, the element around him kept entering, and then slowly dissipated, leaving only a small part in his body. However, more element were left than before. With the awakening of the Red Dragon bloodline, Allen's elemental affinity began to increase, and the increase in elemental affinity would reduce the difficulty of casting spells. The elemental affinity brought by the Red Dragon bloodline increased the most for the fire element, and the others also increased, but compared with the fire element, it was better than nothing. The moon was in the middle of the sky, and the elemental fluctuation had reached its peak, and then it slowly declined. Thousands of miles away from the academy, this was a polluted land. After thousands of years, the pollution had gradually dissipated. Although there were still after effects, it was already possible for humans to survive here. This mountain range is a remnant of the Kiev Mountains. Due to pollution, a large number of demonic beasts and mutant beasts are entrenched here. At this time, the elements are fluctuating violently, and this fluctuation can be felt within a radius of thousands of kilometers. In the surrounding wizard organizations, the formal wizards have all felt it, and woke up from meditation. Lava Tower, an old man in a crimson wizard robe, sat cross-legged in the quiet room like a statue. Suddenly, his expression moved, opened his eyes, looked at the place where the violent fluctuations were coming from, thought for a while, and a flash of light flashed in his hand. Soon a voice came from outside the door. "Tower Master, do you have any instructions?" "Walter, come in." The door of the quiet room slowly opened, and a burly man with a shaved head walked in. Seeing the old man sitting on the stone platform, he bowed his head and saluted. "Walter, go and check it out. There was a lot of noise in the polluted land just now. Be careful along the way. The other few people must have felt such a big fluctuation. If there is any situation, just use this to contact me directly." He handed him a red crystal. "Okay, Tower Master, I'll go right away." After saying that, he took the crystal stone, bowed and turned to leave. Soon, a huge horned eagle flew from the tower to the direction of the Kiev Mountains. At the same time, the Five Rings Tower, the Ghost Swamp, the Thorn Tower, the Black Crow Academy, and several surrounding wizard organizations sent wizards to check. The apprentices below the formal wizard were too far away to notice anything unusual. The next morning, Allen did not feel anything unusual. He still had breakfast, and went to the training ground, to adapt to the surge in strength. There were not many people in the training ground at this time. Allen and several sparring knights were practicing martial arts. These knights would get several night breathing methods and various sword moves by serving the academy here. This was a rare opportunity for poor knights. After a few years, they would sign a confidentiality agreement and leave. Of course, he was allowed to get a complete night breathing method as a legacy. Allen's physical strength alone had reached that of a great knight at this time, so the training was one on many, and then the number of people began to increase slowly. After several days of sparring, without using magic, Allen could deal with 8 knights at the same time. If he used magic, even if there were twice as many knights, it would only cause a little trouble. At the same time, in the room next to the elemental pool of the Five Rings Tower, the 5 Tower Masters, 4 men and 1 woman, who usually either retreated or did experiments, gathered together for a rare occasion. Dean Alfred, what is the matter with you calling us old guys here today? Or thin old man in a white wizard robe said impatiently. Yes, I have an important experiment in progress. What are you doing all of a sudden gathering together? A middle-aged man who was covered in dirt, with stains of various colors all over his clothes and messy hair like a chicken coop said. Is it the skeletons of the Shadow Swamp who are looking for trouble? I'll tear them all down. I've said that group of people are a group of wolf cubs. I'm going to crush them this time. A giant man who was 2 meters tall said in a thunderous voice. Fachiel, be quiet for a moment. Your voice is too loud. If you continue to yell, you won't get any resource allocation from the botanical garden next month. The beautiful young woman sitting in the second seat frowned. The strong man named Fachiel stopped talking like a duck with its throat pinched, and then took a big sip from the teacup on the table. That's all, so I'll start. The old man who had been resting with his eyes closed in the first seat opened his eyes, and a gleam of light flashed all the way. It was a pair of eyes full of wisdom. Seeing that no one objected, the old man slowly spoke. You all felt the elemental fluctuations last night, right? It was so loud, and we are not dead. We must have felt it. Didn't you ask Rogers to check? Is there any news? The thin old man in a white wizard robe took over. He just sent back a message not long ago. Alfred glanced at him and took a sip from the teacup. Is it a gate to another world? Or a laboratory hidden by a dark wizard? Or is it the cross-world teleportation array of the Star Tower that has collapsed again? The old man asked in rapid succession, and then muttered to himself, even if it is these situations, there is nothing that cannot be fought. It is not the first time it has appeared. It's not these. If it was, there would be no need to hold a special meeting. Rogers sent a message saying that a secret realm left by wizards in ancient times was discovered somewhere. Alfred took a sip of tea and said casually, so it's a secret realm. Then this time there is such a big commotion, it should be a large secret realm. The young woman on the right nodded and said, this is the only time a secret realm has appeared in the past few hundred years. The dirty middle-aged man scratched his messy hair. That location is not a good place. It happens to be in the middle of several of our wizard organizations. Chapter 48 Preparation. That means there will be a fight. Fachiel, who was a little depressed just now, suddenly became energetic. We don't know whether that secret realm is a resource secret realm or a trial secret realm, and the situation inside has not been explored clearly. We don't know whether it is worth our effort. It's too early to act now. Alfred thought for a while and said, but the Five Rings Tower has developed very quickly in recent years, and those jealous wizard organizations may not be able to tolerate it. The female wizard from the botanical garden said coldly. Although we are the strongest wizard organization around, and are firmly in the top 3 on the continent, we also have many resource points to guard. Although those wizard organizations are not opponents alone, it is common for them to cooperate for resources. The thin old man nodded in agreement. What Wizard Victor is worried about is very likely to happen. Those wizard organizations have been suppressed a little too much in recent years. The unkempt middle-aged wizard also seemed to understand very well, and was not an academic who was devoted to research. Nicholas, you should sell the secondary magic items in stock in the academy now. During this period, we should focus on refining a batch. I think they will conduct the bloody trial in the end. Selina, your botanical garden also needs to cooperate. I understand. The young woman nodded in agreement. Fatire, I have a hunch that the combat wizard course will be open to all apprentices for free. Okay, I'll give the order. The bald man looked eager to try. Then make preparations first. If the secret realm is deserted and worthless, we will no longer pay attention to it after exploring it. If it is a resource-based secret realm, we will be prepared for war. Alfred thought for a while and said. Everyone stood up, and soon Alfred was the only one in the room. He slowly stood up and went to the rooftop upstairs. He saw that it was daytime outside, but the rooftop was full of stars, and the stars were shining in the night sky. Alfred looked up at the starry sky. During this period, the elements fluctuate frequently and become more active. Calculating the time, this time the element tide is about to begin. The old man's white wizard robe was surrounded by a pattern of galaxies. His pupils were like bright stars, and his wrinkled skin showed a metallic luster. Then he slowly said, "It seems that we are still a lucky generation. I thought that we could not break through the legend, even if we exhausted our lifespans. I didn't expect that the element tide is about to begin. The Five Rings Tower is destined to stand at the top." Then he pointed with the silver wizard staff in his hand, and a light curtain slowly shrank, and the scene of the starry sky also shrank. Finally, the clear sky appeared here again, and the figure standing here has long disappeared. A day passed quickly. Just when Allen was buying materials in the market to start cultivating magic plants, the price of items in the college trading area market suddenly dropped a lot. Allen originally had to spend more than 20 magic stones to buy a complete set of materials, but he only spent 16. But this is a good thing. After all, the price is cheaper, which means more resources for wizards. Allen had just planted a few magic plants in the afternoon when he heard a piece of news. Albert came here specifically to inform him. An announcement from the Five Rings Tower Battle Wizard headquarters. From today on, all wizard apprentices can sign up for the course Battle Casting for free. Battle casting will be included in the quarterly assessment, and this course must be passed. The expensive battle casting that required 10 magic stones to learn is now all free, and even higher level spell effects are also available. This spell effect course was previously only available to apprentices who signed a stricter contract with the academy. It is not only expensive, but also said to be very difficult to learn. Now you can learn, as long as you pay the money and sign a contract not to spread it. However, there must be very few people who can learn it. Upon hearing this news, Allen immediately signed up for the spell effect course. The Tower of Wisdom also issued an announcement. All secondary spell templates are 50% off. At the same time, the second floor of the library is free to open, but all books are prohibited from being taken out. Allen has already noticed that the atmosphere is wrong at this time. Others are still wondering why the academy is offering so many benefits, but Allen already feels that this is preparing for war. Senior wizards who rarely appeared in the academy have suddenly appeared in more than a dozen, and there are hundreds of formal wizards. By the evening, the number of people doubled. These wizards who were usually busy doing experiments and practicing would not gather together for nothing. The academy's supplies also suddenly dropped. It was obvious that the academy put the reserve supplies on the market. The next morning, Allen came back from the training ground. Albert grabbed Allen and said, "Allen, you are here. The news has spread. Did you know? A large resource-based secret realm was discovered in the Kiev Mountains." The Kiev Mountains, that place is where several wizard organizations meet. Allen thought about it and completely understood the situation. Yes, that resource-based secret realm has been explored by the academy's instructors using special methods. The space inside is intact. Although some places are damaged, they can be repaired. It's just that it has not yet fully appeared in the world and cannot be entered. However, it is said that the space inside is very large. Albert said with some distress. Such a big piece of fat meat, the surrounding wizard organizations will definitely fight. Allen's mouth twitched. If it was a small secret realm, even if it was a resource-based one, it would not be possible to stir up all the surrounding wizard organizations to participate. However, such a large resource secret realm is enough to support a wizard organization, which is enough to make the surrounding wizard organizations excited. It is normal for several wizard organizations to fight to the death for this secret realm. After receiving the news, Allen put aside the cultivation of magic plants and tried his best to learn various combat skills and spell effects. However, there are not many spell effects in the Five Rings Tower, and even fewer suitable for wizard apprentices. Allen memorized them with the help of the chip and spent a lot of time to finally learn the spell effect of secondary spell instant casting. However, although this spell effect can be cast instantly, it consumes 20% more mana than normal. Allen only had one flame ring as his equipment. The more magic items he had, the better. so Allen bought a secondary fire element staff. The staff was made of a fiery red branch with a red dragon head carved from a fire element crystal on it. It could reduce the difficulty and consumption of casting spells and increase the power of fire element spells. Allen took the time to refine a batch of healing potions, detoxification potions, and mana potions. He spent a lot of magic stones and bought a bottle of full recovery potion from Lilith. This was developed by the botanical garden. It can restore physical strength and mana in a short time. For Allen, it can restore all his strength in a short time, but the side effects are also serious. It cannot be used continuously. After use, he needs to take a purification potion to remove the side effects. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Garrison Mission. 2 days later, the Academy officially issued a notice. The square in front of the teaching building was usually deserted, but today tens of thousands of wizard apprentices gathered here, making a lot of noise and whispering about the just released notice. This time the war is really going to start. How can I be so unlucky? Why not this year? I just joined the academy this year and I don't have any self-protection ability. I don't know how big the scale of this wizard war will be. If it is limited to the apprentice level, it will be fine. If it is fully launched, then we will have no way to survive. Everyone was talking about it. Allen and other members of the team stood in the patrol position, and most of the people around them were law forces of the academy, or combat wizards. Everyone around them looked unhappy. After all, once this battle started, the casualty rate would definitely remain high. In this war, the wizards of the academy can hide, but we combat wizards can't hide. Now it's best to pray that we don't become cannon fodder, Arthur said with a somewhat ugly face. He had not yet completely digested the bloodthirsty honey, but his strength was already close to the peak of a third level wizard apprentice. If he was given a few more months, he would have the strength to challenge a formal wizard. Now that he was interrupted by this sudden war, he must be unhappy. Allen was also unhappy. After taking the bloodthirsty honey a few times, he could advance to a third level wizard apprentice. Now he had to participate in such a dangerous operation. You can imagine how depressed he was. Those who have money, buy some while the prices of supplies are lowered. When the war really starts, you may have more trump cards to save lives. This is not the time to save money. At this moment, a heavy voice suddenly rang out. Silence. Allen felt that the voice was just ringing in his ears, and he couldn't help but quiet down. A high platform suddenly rose in front of the square. An old man in a white wizard robe appeared on the platform. He was followed by several formal wizards. His aura was like an abyss. Just standing there affected the surrounding environment. The square suddenly became silent. I'm Alfred, the Dean of the Academy. I'm sure you've read the announcement. The wizard war is coming. This is a danger, but also an opportunity. Wizard apprentices will also participate in this war. The academy will not let you die, nor will it let you face wizard level enemies. The academy will make some arrangements for you during this period, so take advantage of the time and strengthen your strength. When the war is over, you will get the rewards you deserve. After saying this, his body turned into starlight and then disappeared. After the wizards left, Allen took a deep breath. This was the first time Allen had seen this Dean. Although you looked thin and small, the moment you appeared, Allen's heartbeat slowed down. This is the power of a third level wizard. Chip. Analyze the strength of the Dean just now. Ding. The mission begins. The analysis has been completed. The score is failure. Insufficient data. It seems that the chip has limited effect on high level wizards. Only when my own strength improves, its ability will improve accordingly. Allen greeted the others and began to go back. The Dean was right. This war was indeed an opportunity. Allen also read the reward system in the announcement just now. This time, the academy offered a lot of rewards, including first level spell templates, azure potions, magic items, and all kinds of knowledge. However, it is not easy to get them. A first level wizard apprentice in the hostile academy has only 1 contribution point. A second level wizard apprentice has 3 contributions. And a third level wizard apprentice has 10 contributions. As for the seed apprentices who have been marked by the academy as having great potential, the minimum contribution is 50 points. If you have the ability to kill a formal wizard, congratulations, you have 500 contributions. However, no apprentice will go crazy and think that he can kill a formal wizard. Just like the potion needed to break through the formal wizard, the Azure potion requires 100 contribution points, and a first level spell template requires 80 to 120. There are even some legendary wonders, such as the Water of Life. Although it is diluted, the effect is still powerful. For wizard apprentices, 1 unit of Water of Life can increase their lifespan by 50 years. For wizard apprentices who are older and have no hope of breaking through, taking 1 unit will give them another chance to impact the formal wizard. This instantly ignited hope for many third level wizard apprentices who were not young and had already despaired. The price was absolutely painful, 200 contribution points. There were also some alchemical puppet creations. A third level apprentice clay puppet cost 100 magic stones, with the strength equivalent to that of a great knight, much higher defense, but slow movement. A third level wizard apprentice was enough to deal with it, but using a good one as a meat shield would be very effective. There were also high level puppets, but the price was very touching. Time passed quickly, and the Five Rings Tower had begun to evacuate those college apprentices and new blood who had just joined the college. They were weak in combat and could not play any role. And those above the second level apprentices also began to be arranged in the rear, and the library even opened some advanced knowledge to a limited extent. Allen spent a lot of magic stones at this time, in exchange for a large amount of knowledge supplies and some spell scrolls. Soon the Five Rings Tower assigned tasks. At this time, there were fewer people in the college. There were only a few wizard apprentices who used to rush around on the campus, and there were no college apprentices. Allen and his companions hurriedly walked in the college and came to the mission hall, which was very lively. Various tasks were displayed on the crystal display screen. Many wizard apprentices who felt they were strong enough spontaneously formed teams to take on tasks. The tasks that appeared here would not exceed the level of formal wizards. Most of them were to assist in guarding resource points. Most of these resource points had low outputs, so formal wizards would not care about them. They were all fought over by wizard apprentices from both sides. The formal wizards were fighting for the secret realm. As far as Allen knew, the largest secret realm in the Five Rings Tower was the Botanical Garden, and its output accounted for 60% of the Academy's consumption. There were also 2 medium-sized secret realms and 5 small secret realms. Formal wizards were minor characters in that level of war. Allen and his team's task was to guard a small resource point not far from the academy. Some ores were produced here, and Allen needed to change guards. The wizard apprentices who were replaced would return to the academy with the mined ores, and they would receive some contribution points as rewards. You will be sent here to garrison for a week. During this period, you need to mine resources and improve your strength. Be careful not to die. Those skeletons are masters at playing with souls. If you die in their hands, your soul will likely be tortured for decades. A wizard in a grey robe handed Arthur a parchment scroll with a topographic map and something that looked like a ring, which was the handover certificate. Chapter 50, Anti-Magic Crystal. The 2 teams had a total of 10 people. After receiving the mission, they left the academy. 2 of the 10 people were 3rd level wizard apprentices, and the rest were 2nd level wizard apprentices. Because the place they were going to was not far from the academy, they rented the academy's mounts this time. The flying mounts kept in the Five Rings Tower were griffins. This flying demon beast had average speed, but fierce combat power and good gravity bearing capacity. It was a good mount. After half a day, the group finally found a small mountain range here. The resource point was in this mountain range. Guided by the map, the group came to a place covered by rune formations. Arthur raised the ring in his hand, activated his mana, and a beam of light shot in. After a while, the scenery in front of them suddenly became turbulent, and a figure gradually emerged. After confirming the mission letter and the token, the formation was opened, and Allen and others entered one by one. There are only 5 guards here. One is a 3rd level apprentice, and the others are 2nd level apprentices. The guarding power is not strong. They let Allen and his friends into a room, and told them the details of the mine. After handing over the task, the 5 people took the ore, and rode the griffin away. The outer layer was just an illusion array with a confusing effect, just to prevent ordinary people from mistakenly entering this place. The news of the war was received not long ago, and there was no time to arrange it here. Allen and his friends also brought a set of runestones this time. You can arrange a magic array that can attack and defend, and 2 teams will take turns to guard. The mine pit is mined by purchased slaves. The 5 Rings Tower bought it, and promised that they would be free after working for 10 years, so they dare not be lazy at work, because once they are discovered, the wizards have plenty of ways to deal with them. Several people took turns to patrol the mine cave, as if they were on guard, to prevent foreign enemies from attacking. Those who were not on duty could rest and meditate nearby. Not long after Allen arrived at the mine, the wizard war broke out. Several wizard organizations that had been suppressed by the 5 Rings Tower united to besiege the 5 Rings Tower. The Ghost Tower of the Ghost Swamp and the Black Crow Academy, the 2 black wizard organizations, had already united. Unexpectedly, the Lava Tower and the Thorn Tower also participated this time. However, the 2 sides belonged to the Black Wizards and the White Wizards respectively, and the hatred was deep. This time, because the newly appeared secret realm was large enough. In the face of interests, the 4 wizard organizations reluctantly united and formed a 4-tower alliance to besiege the 5 Rings Tower together. Originally, with the strength of the 5 Rings Tower, neither the Black Wizards nor the other White Wizards were its opponents, and they had enough strength to press them to the ground. It was just that this time the 2 sides united and finally gained the upper hand, and the 5 Rings Tower retracted its defense. The light of the morning sun fell, and the mountains and forests were still filled with thick fog. Allen was on duty last night, and was now resting with his eyes closed. I left the academy during this period, and did not receive any news. But Allen still has confidence in the 5 Rings Tower. The 5 Rings Tower has 5 Tower Masters who are all level 3 wizards, while the other wizard organizations around them all have 1 level 3 wizard. Only the Black Crow Academy has 2 level 3 wizards. The number alone is enough to suppress the Black Wizards. At this moment, Allen doesn't know that several wizard organizations around have united to deal with the 5 Rings Tower. Being stationed here is actually a good job, because this is a low-level resource point. Most of the ores produced are ordinary ores, and only a small part is magic ores, such as red crystal iron and fire copper. For example, high-level magic ores are not produced, so the 5 Rings Tower does not attach much importance to it. It is more often used to reward and train apprentices. The output here is only charged by the academy, and the extra is considered as the extra reward for the stationed wizards. In the past, the garrison was for level 3 apprentices. Now because the academy is not safe, the apprentices are evacuated. This is not a high-level resource point, and no formal wizards will come. As for the enemy wizard apprentices, they have to rely on themselves. After all, the 5 Rings Tower is not a nanny. The most important thing for them now is to defend the academy. The alliance between the Black Wizards and the White Wizards is not solid. As long as the 5 Rings Tower is stable, it is only a matter of time to turn defeat into victory. Chip. Sort out the data collected in the past few days. Scan the terrain and mark it. Giving the position to the apprentice, who came to replace him, Allen walked into the mine and prepared to explore the environment of the miners. Light spell. The staff lightly tapped, and a soft white light emerged. In front of him was a man-made mine. Looking at the traces around, it has been mined for decades. There are various traces of pits and potholes on the surrounding rocks. There is a layer of waste, ore on the ground, which is about 5 meters wide. Under the light, the metal components in the ore reflect slightly. When it is about 100 meters deep, a branch road begins to appear in the mine. Some low-grade ores began to appear on the wall. These ores were too low in content and difficult to smelt, so they were not dug out. The most produced here was copper ore, followed by gold and silver ore, while the output of magic ore was not high. Allen chose a mine tunnel and walked in. No valuable ore was found in the chip scan. Allen went deep all the way. This mine should be exhausted. Soon Allen came to the bottom of this mine tunnel. There was no harvest. Allen had to retreat and then enter another fork again. This time Allen's luck finally came. It didn't take long for the chip to scan an abnormal place. This was a piece of copper ore, but Allen found that it was only on the surface. He drew out the cross sword and cast a magic weapon with his right hand. This magic can make the weapon temporarily gain some effects of magic weapons. Then he stabbed into the rock with force and scratched it hard and dug out the ore. Move the light ball hit by the light spell over and you can see that there is a translucent crystal on the north side of the ore. Chip. Start scanning. Ding. The task has been established. Start scanning. Scan completed. The target ore is quartz crystal. Medium hardness. Has good energy transmission characteristics. Has low level spell resistance. As the chip scanned, some statistical data appeared in front of Allen. This is an anti-magic crystal. Good luck. Allen was instantly surprised and said to himself, after analyzing this vein these days, I felt that there was something wrong. The scattered magic ores are concentrated in a few places, but these anti-magic crystals are very strange products. After absorbing enough elemental energy, it will have a repulsive reaction and repel the magic element to the surroundings. So the magic ore here is scattered. This crystal can be used to make some anti-magic puppets. This is a special kind of magic puppet that can increase the magic resistance of the puppet. If the magic resistance is high enough, it will be immune to low-level spells. If it is used to make a puppet, the wizard apprentice will basically be useless, and the secondary magic will be invalid. Only the apprentice with a strengthened body can cause damage to it. P.S. Thanks to Noisy Fish, Golden Skyline of Breaking the Sky, the enthusiastic Zhao Wang next door, Wen Wu Leo Iu, Jingling Sanren, Feng Fen Kejiuo, Niu Batian 1, Confused Heart, Mountain Stream Little Dragon, Book Friends, Too Many Numbers to Type Out, Imolan Kang, HD 9990, Prawn Riding a Pig, Ordinary People in the Multiverse, Wanderings of Purple Star. Fifth Love, Fantasy CN Blue Sky TK, Hualin Jade Rabbit, Supreme Wu, Shi Chen, Lonely 100 Flowers and many other book friends for their recommendation votes and support. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.